Welcome to this unprecedented joint meeting of the two boards, the Board of Supervisors and the CCWD Board. We'll be talking about water issues in a moment, but first I have an announcement. The results of the closed session completed earlier today. The result is nothing vote. The board is signing a resolution approving disability retirement of the Deputy Sheriff 2. And that completes our closed session. And at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to Bob Dean, who will convene the CCWD public input.
As a matter of procedure, we actually have to call the CCWD board to order. And as a result, I would ask Mona to please do a roll call, please. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Here.
The next item of business for CCWD is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd all join me to pledge the allegiance to the flag, which is over here.
Over there.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This particular joint meeting was called to discuss what we all seem to hold near and dear and certainly have a great deal in common, and that's the issue of water in Calaveras County. One of the things that leading up to this meeting that I was doing was trying to figure out what I might say as part of an introduction to address, I think, the importance of this particular meeting. At the same time I was thinking about that, I happened to look at an email that was sent to me by Clark Anderson, whom many of you know because he's been leading the Local Government Commission's project to address water and land use planning in both Calaveras and Amador County. And he sent a draft of which the third or fourth paragraph, I think, pretty much sums up better than I ever could one of the reasons why we're here, because it's a process issue. And allow me to just indulge for a minute and read this paragraph. A number of institutional challenges cross-cut issues associated with physical development patterns, including coordination within and between local agencies, outdated policies, differing views regarding the need and value of new growth and development, lack of awareness about the water implications of different development decisions, threats to private property rights, economies of scale for infrastructure, and a range of legacy impacts from past management challenges and failures. And the purpose of our meeting today is hopefully to address some of these issues, and move forward in a concerted manner where both the county and CCWD as Calaveras County's water agency can be pretty much on the same page and be able to address future growth and development.
Again, Russ Thomas. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Supervisors and Joint Chair of the Water Committee. And the only thing that I would like to add to what Director Dean has just said is that we are by no means, nobody is taking a position that the other special districts, the other water purveyors, the wastewater treaters that we have in the county are going to be overlooked in this process. They're all have been and will be at the table. It's been very gratifying to me to be involved in these discussions over the last year to year and a half, and I'm very excited about my ability to participate in the long-range solutions for our water needs in this county. So this is a joint meeting of the CCWD board and the Board of Supervisors, but make no mistake, there are familiar faces of representatives from all the other districts up here, and we are moving forward together and as we move forward to the solution of the problems that we'll have in the future. So thank all of you for being here.
And all you other water districts are welcome to contribute financially also.
Very briefly, as a matter of procedure, when we agendize or when we open a board meeting, we have room for public comment. So if there's anybody who has anything to say that's not part of the agenda that's going to be presented, you make your statement now, please.
My name is Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. I want to do a comment. I talked to Supervisor Tryon a few minutes ago with respect to the disclosure of public documents and the ease at which the public can see those documents. I'm sure that you, as members of public boards, are aware of the Public Records Act. However, we had a situation at the board a few weeks ago where, on advice of County Council, the Board of Supervisors forced the public, in this case the public turned out to be the Stockton Record, to fill out a formal application for a copy of the resignation agreement and settlement. Forced the public to do that. When knew the end result was that it was a public document, it would be handed over to the public and made public. This is not, in my mind, a cooperative atmosphere between elected officials and the public. You're dealing with public matters and public funds, whether they be local, state, or federal. You should be as open as possible. I'm sure all of you have heard of the Sunshine Law. There should be more sun shining in Calaveras County. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3A. It's part of our agenda. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I apologize.
I promise I'll probably talk again later. However, one of the things that I haven't heard mentioned or haven't seen written regarding the development aspects, economic development aspects in the county, and I'm particularly concerned about the west end of the county, but it involves union jobs. We have an interest in developing more employment opportunities for county residents, but I personally encourage anything that promotes union jobs in the county. They're better paid, they have better benefit packages, and they're overall better for the county. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 3A, which is discussion and or action regarding inclusion of a water element plan to the county general plan. I think, David, is this your presentation?
Thank you, President Dean. What I wanted to do is give you an introduction to why we're here today. Purposely, we're here to discuss with the county the integration of a separate water element into the general plan. And if all of you don't have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, there is extra copies available up at the front desk. It's sort of hard to, maybe hard to see the screen, but we're going to try to follow along on that. So the first thing I want to cover is the purpose of why we're here. CCWD is the responsible agency for water resources throughout the county. This responsibility is shared with a number of other special districts as well as the City of Angels. And in order for us to fulfill our mandate, we are requesting that the water element of the general plan be a standalone element and included in the general plan. Unless there's an integrated and coordinated water and land use policy, the district cannot fulfill its mandate, and that mandate is to protect and preserve water rights for future generations of the citizens of Calaveras County, and to effectively put water to use for the beneficial uses of all of our citizens here. So our goal is to provide water services, the infrastructure necessary to do that, and to protect for future generations the water rights. A key to success is the incorporation into the water plan, into the general plan process. We would like to have land use mirror our water development as well as our infrastructure. Establishing this will be beneficial in the sense that all of our agencies can participate in the process. The county would be coordinated with us in terms of proposing development in areas where infrastructure can and will be planned for. And this we propose to do through an inclusive process that would include county government, all of the local agencies that are responsible for water and sewer, as well as the public. In terms of background, the CCWD has been doing ongoing regional planning efforts to identify water and wastewater. We currently have the Highway 1226 regional study underway. We also have a Highway 4 study that looks at both water and wastewater resources on the areas from the City of Angels up to Forest Meadows. Every 5 years, our agency develops a urban water management plan, which is essentially our blueprint for providing services for our agency. And in addition, and we'll talk about a little later, is we have 2 integrated regional water management plans, which are plans that encompass the watersheds of the Calaveras, the Stanislaus, and the McCollum River. And those are jointly done with both nonprofit corporations as well as with other public agencies, counties, cities, in both our neighboring counties, Tuolumne and Amador. We have, in the past, we have developed a coordinated effort to address the general plan. Our board of directors has approved funding for a general plan. The inclusion of the general or the water element into the general plan. We've retained the firm of MWH to assist in putting together background reports as well as developing policies in the area of our water element. Currently, this process is ongoing. We're developing background information for the report, and these items have been aired through our joint water committee, which consists of the county agency, our agency, and participation by all of the water and wastewater agencies in the county. The first thing is why a water plan element is needed. The purpose is to focus and clarify the importance of water in this county. Without water, this agency and this county cannot develop to its full potential. And we talk about water, we talk about not only residential and commercial uses, we talk about agricultural uses, water reuse, that is taking reclaimed water from our wastewater plants and putting it to beneficial use, as well as providing raw water supplies for whether it be commercial, industrial, or agricultural uses. What we also want to do is to provide clear direction by including a water element in the general plan. This will give the public as well as the development community clear direction as to where things need to move in the future. Another primary element is to avoid problems of the past. We've had areas where we've had water shortages and well failures. We've had situations where we currently provide wastewater services to 13 separate entities or communities in the county. Many of those agencies are very close together. Those water or sewer supply agencies are very close together. So we need to develop a strategic plan, and we have to have that coordinated with the land use portion of the county's general plan. Because of the importance that the county has in terms of determining where land use goes, we have to make sure that the infrastructure is there to support it. Us as water and sewer agencies, we're reactive to the decisions made by the county, so we need to move ahead in a coordinated manner in order that there is adequate supplies and infrastructure to address these concerns as time moves on and the county approves new developments in various portions of the county. The other underlying concern that we have is the utilization of water rights, and that'll be discussed later today. But the problem we have is that if we do not put our water to use in this county, there are plenty of agencies in the San Joaquin Delta and the San Joaquin River Basin that will gladly put that water to use. And once that water is gone, it won't be coming back to this county. So it's critical that we plan accordingly. We try to utilize the rich resources we have before it is taken by other agencies who can put it to beneficial use. Another aspect of this that we want to try to emphasize through these coordinated efforts is to provide standardization in our policies. For example, by moving ahead in a coordinated effort, we can also allow for infrastructure to be standards for infrastructure to be the same. That provides assistance to the county in terms of inspections, in terms of developers working in the community. They don't have to worry about 20 different standards that apply in different agencies and different parts of the county. They can work throughout the county with the standards that are the same for everyone. The next slide we have is just some anecdotal evidence of what's gone on. We currently provide water service to people who truck water into the Burson area because of well failures. Recent news articles talking about pollution in the McCollum River. The sheep ranch system that we have, that serves about 37 customers, and that's the transmission facilities to get it to our filtration plant. So you can see, to try to develop resources and infrastructure to meet the needs of the people in these various communities. It's a very difficult and expensive process, and one of our overall goals through this coordination is that we can then make sure that the costs are as economical as possible for the ratepayers and the developers in the area. So we talked a little bit about what is needed. What I want to stress now are what are the benefits of a water element to the general plan. First off is that the linkage between land use decisions and water planning is paramount. That is that when a decision is made to develop an area or consider development of an area, there's a lot of issues that the county has to consider: transportation, land uses, what community input is on it. But we need to have in front and center water and wastewater facilities as being able to serve those communities. We want to develop certain policies that support our water rights protection, economic development, reliable services. We want to increase the efficiency of our services by serving the more urban areas or the areas where there's higher densities, so that it's more economical to serve those areas. And then again, groundwater management. Our district is actively involved in AB 303 groundwater management. We've recently received a grant to continue to study that in the West County area, and that's an important area that we need to develop information on to see what the groundwater can support and where we need to supplement that with surface water. In addition, we need to increase public awareness of the situation and the interlink between water and development.
Consistent staff time from one county staff member. But in terms of the Tuolumne and Stanislaus IRWMP, there is a cost share for this development, and it would be shared among all the agencies and partners of that IRWMP process. And the Tuolumne Utilities District is requesting $13,500 from each of the larger participants, of which CCWD and Calaveras County are considered the larger participants. So we're being each requested to pay $13,500, and I'll come back to that if there's time. I have a number of other slides. I'm just going to jump through real quickly. I pretty much gave you the rundown of the important items, but I'd like to give you a little more of a background just to let you know how much money is available, because ultimately what the IRWMP process is about is working together, and in working together we can try to achieve economies of scale, and by working together bring in state and federal money to help keep rates down. So you spend a little now, and hopefully we can get a lot of money in return in terms of cost savings and state and federal grants. So all of you have seen the hydrologic cycle before. I'm not going to bore anyone with the details, but basically the only idea here is that one element of the hydrologic cycle impacts the other elements. It's really an integrated system, and what we do to land is directly connected to what happens in the water. So by sustaining our water resources for use by our future generations. And I want to say, through this IRWMP process, it is comprehensive planning that has and will continue to encourage cooperation and not competition. So if you look at planning and how it was done in the old approach, there has been a lot of organizations working on their own projects without coordinating or participating in a regional cooperation. And you end up with silo management, inefficient use of resources, and so on. And what it does is ends up costing the community a lot more money in the long run, especially the ratepayers. And what we're looking at is trying to improve that model by working together through this IRWMP process to remove those silos and to work together in ways that standardizes the specifications so that the planning department has one size fits all throughout the county if possible and where appropriate, but also to develop multi-purpose solutions that stretches the dollar as far as it can possibly go. And by integrating results in a cooperative manner, we believe we can iteratively tie land use planning to planning that makes the best sense for everybody. And in the end, collaboration will strengthen the region's clout. There's people from all over the state and all over the nation that attend Sacramento and DC regularly looking for money. And I'll tell you, the people that are there that are really getting that old cliche, what's that, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, if we can work together and put out a central message, there's ways that we can bring money in to keep rates down for everybody. So why is this integration necessary? Well, we're, CCWD, and I'm speaking for CCWD right now, we do surface water management, we do groundwater management, we've been involved in watershed management on the McCollum, the Calaveras, and the Stanislaus. We do water conservation. We're hoping to improve in that area with some new projects coming up. We also do wastewater reuse and recycling. There's stormwater management issues in this county, and we're hoping to develop some conjunctive use opportunities as needs arise. So these areas are all very complicated and take a lot of time and effort and a lot of money. So by working together, we can all, I think, develop these projects in a way that keep rates down. This slide here simply looks at the roadmap to managing resources between protecting water quality, using water efficiently, and keeping in mind environmental stewardship. None of these things are mutually exclusive, and they're brought together through this IRWMP process. And it is the most effective way to address our water resource issues. Next slide. This is just briefly some of the money that's available. Prop 50, which has recently pretty much been funded out, spent over $3.5 billion on water supply projects around the state, $15 million for preparing IRWMPs. So that's the kind of money we're talking about, billions of dollars, and new bonds are being proposed. Governor Schwarzenegger has another one for this fall that's on the ballot that will bring additional money for building water supply reliability projects. Proposition 84 that we're just starting right now has $5.4 billion available for projects throughout the state. And that's a lot of money. And if this county gets its act together in terms of working together through IRWMPs, I guarantee some of that money will come into this county to help build infrastructure, restore the environment, and keep rates down. Next slide. This is basically a breakdown of it by state, what the funding regions are. Currently, we're in the San Joaquin Valley, so we have to compete with other entities within the San Joaquin Valley, and we're working on an effort to develop a funding area that would be for the western slope of the Sierra, but it's a long political process. But right now, the way Prop 84 is written, we have to compete with valley water districts and other cities and counties. So it's a very stiff competition. That's why this IRWMP for this county is very important, so that we can compete effectively with downstream agencies. Next slide. So basically, I just want to underscore how complex water environmental issues are here in this county. Our drinking water from CCWD is served from 3 different watersheds, from the Stanislaus in the south, through the Calaveras in the middle of the county, and the McCollum to the north. There's groundwater on the west side of the county that's relied on, and it's failing. There's urban and stormwater management issues. There's polluted, there's natural habitat losses, and lastly, there's flood management opportunities. So the raft of these put together are very complicated and can't be solved overnight. It takes a concerted effort, a team approach, and many, many meetings to figure out the nuts and bolts of how we put this together in an IRWMP. Next slide. I wanted to briefly let you know that CCWD has been very successful over the last several years in obtaining state and federal money. I'm not going to read through this list, but we've brought in millions of dollars into this county to help fund projects. We've been doing this for the most part independent within this county, and that's why I'm here trying to pitch this message that, you know, we'd like to extend the hand and try to work together, because when I do go to Sacramento and DC, what I'm seeing is that there are opportunities out there, and the more united we are, the better single voice we have, and the better the message is. And by telling a story, we will be successful in bringing money to the table here in Calaveras County. But for instance, Mr. Andrus touched on it. We recently were rewarded $300,000 grant for groundwater monitoring in the west side. We were authorized $3 million in water supply and wastewater improvements throughout the county. We recently secured a $32,000 grant for regional studies on the Highway 4 corridor. We were awarded over $2 million or over $4 million in water distribution system replacement, and the list goes on. You know, and these are millions of dollars that we secured from state and federal resources that are not coming from ratepayers in this county. And I know rates are up there in comparison throughout the state, and we need to look for efficient ways to keep those rates down, and getting state and federal grants is one way to do that. And the way to get those grants is by working together with a good story. So some of our ongoing CCWD efforts, we're negotiating with East Bay Mud and other downstream agencies to build projects on the McCollum, Calaveras, and Stanislaus to ensure water supply reliability throughout the county. These are ongoing efforts that require a lot of staff time every month. We're developing these IRWMPs. We're recommending policies, goals, and objectives for the general plan update. We're pursuing multi-agency Cosgrove Creek Flood Management Project. We're exploring ways to develop water conservation programs county-wide. And we're exploring these regional opportunities ultimately to cut costs and keep rates down. So, next slide. Just lastly, these IRWMP targets, they're simply to provide direction and focus for resource management issues, to address water resource needs of the area, to improve flood management, to protect the environment and open space. As I mentioned, none of these things are mutually exclusive, and they're wide-ranging. So we hope that people get involved in these upcoming processes. But some of our targets are to improve and protect water quality, to improve water supply reliability, to develop open space and parks, and to sustain local communities. And we can do that through these IRWMP processes that unite the general plan and the urban water management planning process. I have on this slide a couple examples of ways we can form committees of interest, you know, for water supply reliability. People are interested in groundwater, other people are interested in flood management, maybe it's environmental, others are parks and recreation. And this all plugs into the Economic Development Summit that was held several weeks ago, because without that economic development, you know, building infrastructure is very difficult and costly. And to continue with this success, the Economic Summit, this joint meeting today, the IRWMPs, the general plan, the urban water management plan, we'd like to see greater participation and collaboration between all the agencies that are here. We'd like to improve the governance structure, finalize MOUs with respect to these IRWMPs. We'd like to set ourselves up to compete successfully for the Proposition 84 funding and the bonds that are being passed. There's millions of dollars available. I can't underscore how important that is. We'd like to develop regional capital improvement programs. We would like to include environmental parks and recreation components to this. There's a shortage of those around the county. And we'd like to continue and expand outreach, especially to some of the disadvantaged communities. All of these wrapped together can be done through this IRWMP process, and I really encourage the Board of Supervisors to engage with CCWD and other water districts in these two opportunities that are before us today. Thank you. I know I spoke quickly.
Thanks, Ed. Does anybody have any questions specifically for Ed before we move on? Randy? Can you come forward, please? Identify yourself.
Randy Crutcher, constituent of District 3. Ed, excellent report. Thank you. Could you, in 60 seconds, just cite what you might be proposing in the way of water conservation projects, particularly if they're integrated with stormwater and other of the 6 or 7 areas you referred to?
Well, we recently submitted a couple of grants for countywide water conservation programs, and we're hoping to hear back any day now whether or not we're successful. But one thing with all these grant programs is they become super competitive in the last few years. And if I may, for just a moment, in the 80s and 90s, grants were available then. You could turn in an application and get a D on it, using letter grades as a metaphor, and get the project funded. In the 90s, you could be successful with, say, a C on your concept proposal. In the last couple of years, if you're not in the A, high B range, there's no way you're getting any grant funding. And that, it's just a super competitive process in Sacramento and DC now. And that's why I underscore these cooperative efforts. But in terms of water conservation, what we recently submitted, we submitted concept proposal for high efficiency appliance rebate program for high efficiency washer rebate programs and ultra low flow toilets. We're also looking to do some landscape audit programs and help folks look at better ways to improve irrigation efficiency throughout the county, but especially the west side. We're looking in long term at reuse and recycling. We've been doing that for some time now, but we're hoping to expand that. We're also looking at flood management, and I use management specifically because it not only is flood control, but it looks at trying to take that water when it's there and try to look for ways to regulate it so that we can use it beneficially at a later point in time. It's just expensive and difficult because when it's flooding, no one needs the water. Where everyone's trying to get rid of it at the same time. So if we can look for innovative, unique ways to try to regulate it, then we can reuse and recycle it, recharge it into the groundwater basin, conjunctive use. These things all tie together, and so water conservation is an integral component of this unified package.
Any other questions for Ed?
Yes, Ed, what has been the level of cooperation from Stockton East as far as aquifer recharge?
Can I speak my opinion, or just should I be politically sensitive? Well, we are partners with Stockton East on the new Hogan project. And they're also working with us through the McCollum River Forum process to look at water supply reliability enhancements on the McCollum River. Stockton East is also receiving millions of dollars of federal funding through the Corps of Engineers for the Farmington Groundwater Recharge Project. They sit on top of alluvial aquifer that's a part of the eastern San Joaquin groundwater basin that we have on our west side. It pinches out here in Calaveras County. Is very important for folks that live in that area, but it's an inverted bathtub, so they're sitting over the deeper end and they have better alluvial properties for recharging groundwater. But that's not to say that we don't have a similar opportunity in Calaveras County, and that's why we were very thankful that we received the WARDA authorization. That was a huge super win. I don't know if people realize how important WARDA is to this county, but we'd like to see groundwater recharge in our area because there is surface water available to try to recharge the basin and to help secure reliability if this drought turns into, say, a 6-year drought or worse, an 8-year drought or a 10-year drought. I've seen headlines, 50-year drought. What happens? So it's important that we try to put our surface water that's available now to beneficial use, and one of those beneficial uses is groundwater recharge and conjunctive use. Stockton East is ahead of us in terms of that effort, but we're doing what we can now to try to do some of that work. But again, it costs millions of dollars to build the infrastructure to be able to do these things. So that's why we're here today, to talk about how we can work together to try to afford these big capital improvement projects, but keep rates down.
Are there any other questions with regard to both the presentation on the weather element and the IRWMP. They may seem like totally separate, disparate elements, but they are very much connected. And I think you'll see that the integration of one to the other in a seamless process will avoid the historic fragmentation that has been always part of this local process of trying to make sense out of something that seems senseless. At least that's my perspective. Anyhow, let's see, where do we want to go from here? I think there was consideration of the Board of Supervisors considering a water element. I think that I would like both to ask Russ Thomas, who's a joint chairman with me on the Joint Water Committee, to give his opinion. I'd certainly be happy to render my opinion. And then I'd like Chairman Walensky to take over this part of the meeting and poll his board members. The one part of the IRWMP which calls for a contribution from Calaveras County of $13,500 has not been agendized, but it would be something that I'd like the county to take up at a future agenda, a future meeting with an agenda in place so that we could at least discuss it in a formal manner. I know that this is kind of a surprise to them because I don't think they've been involved so far in the T-stand process, and since it's a relatively new project, I can understand that. But if we're going to work together, we're going to need to have these kinds of conversations, and so I would ask them to consider that for a future agenda item for a future board meeting. Russ, do you want to give your opinion about
I could give my opinion on a lot of subjects, but we have a card. Randy, I'm going to fracture this. Lego Marcino. Randy, did you want to come and make a comment about the, or no comment now? Okay. You want to reserve your comments till later? So, okay. All right. I think that it's probably appropriate to launch right into this. We've had a number of opportunities for the board members to talk about their leaning toward putting the water element into the general plan as a standalone concept. I frankly think that that's a good idea. I've worked on other elements of general plans that it's very convenient to be able to take that particular element off into a room or into several rooms and work on it at frequencies that don't occur every 10 years. I personally have had an opportunity to work on general plans where we took certain elements out of it and worked on it fairly frequently. That's an ongoing process in Stanislaus County, where I came from. Tuolumne County handles it that way. It is not a $1 million process every 10 or 15 years. It's more of a community-based process that you do on an ongoing basis. So if Supervisor Walensky is asking for a poll of the board, I think, at this point. After some discussion. But I'm going to just jump in and say that I am very much in favor of having a standalone element, and maybe there would be some other member of the board that would jump in and say why that's not a good idea.
Okay. At this point,
Can I ask this one question? Certainly, of course. What are the alternatives? I mean, it has to be in the general plan in some form, but are there other alternatives that you guys are considering?
Jeff, to answer that in the best way that I can, is it has been explained to me that there might be a way that the water element, all of the concepts and the objectives could be sprinkled throughout the general plan, so that you might have to read the general plan from cover to cover to find out how Calaveras County is treating the availability and the sustainability of water. We have an esteemed general plan provider here, or writer of general plans. Maybe Larry could come up and answer that question. If a county doesn't have a standalone water element, how would it look in other jurisdictions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to respond to the request. if you don't have a standalone element, typically what you're going to be doing in the policy part of your plan is addressing water issues under public facilities and services and natural resources. That's the most common pattern in the plans that we work on. Now, we've already, in the baseline report that we've already produced for the general plan, the water issues are touched on in, again, natural resources, and we also have public facilities and services. So we've already established that pattern for the baseline report. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to follow that same pattern as we move ahead into the policy document. So again, I think that's the most common alternative to a standalone element.
Thank you.
Okay, I understand there are people who want to speak to this issue as well, but I thought for the moment, since this is an opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to declare itself in relation to the subject, that we might want to begin that discussion here and move down the line first for a comment. I'm not asking for a poll at this time because I'd like to take that after public comment, but I'd like to hear what the board's thinking, the Board of Supervisors' thinking is on the idea of a water element versus the alternatives just outlined by Mr. Mentir. Would anybody like to kick that off?
You want to do this before we have input?
Prefer to have public comment first. I just thought they might want to bounce off some of our ideas.
Board, and then have public comment.
No, what I was suggesting is that the board raise its questions at this time and issues.
You know, I have a question for Ed.
And then move to public comment and then back to a poll of the board.
Okay, this maybe slightly off topic, but recently several of us attended a presentation by Heinz Hamann with regard to water resources and rights in this county, and the debate that I don't quite understand that is ongoing apparently is with regard to groundwater recharge and how that water is held. Is there a conventional wisdom as to whether that surface water put into groundwater recharge, now that it's in groundwater recharge, is that surface water and subject to the surface water rights and/or reservations that we may have, or is it now groundwater that is up for grabs in the aquifer?
You're getting into a really technical legal area, and it is fuzzy, but there is some precedent. The State Water Board has jurisdiction over post-14 surface water rights, and typically what they define free-flowing water is between defined channels. So some groundwater, if it is between a defined channel, even though it's in the ground, the State Water Board has jurisdiction. I'll leave the real detailed legal argument for it to an attorney, but my understanding is that if it's in a known and defined channel, even though it's underground, the State Water Board is going to exercise jurisdiction over that. However, in the Comanche Valley Springs area of Calaveras County, that's a groundwater basin. So once surface water is recharged into the ground, that becomes groundwater and no longer considered surface water that needs a permit. That water becomes basically overlying landowner water. But there is some fuzziness, I believe, whereby agencies like, say, Stockton East Water District that has an active groundwater recharge program creates a bubble of water in this groundwater. It kind of takes time to move, but because it recharges so quick, they call it a bubble. And there's some legal uncertainty whether or not they have the right to exercise their sole use of that water, or say a downstream overlying landowner can pump from that bubble. And so I think
so
that's...
You're saying the possibility exists that if we were to exercise or to perfect water rights on the McCollum River, take that water and put it into groundwater recharge, the possibility exists that we have used that perfected water right and placed it into a communal basin. That possibility exists.
Oh, that's a very good possibility, and I think it would help a lot of folks with failing wells in the area. and improve some of the agency's ability to ensure water supply reliability during a long-term drought.
That it would be a beneficial use of that water.
And it's a beneficial use of that water, yes, all the above.
What we need to be doing
in order to perfect them, right.
Did you want?
Well, if there are questions that the board is interested, before we begin this public discussion, I'm interested in what questions or issues the board might have relating to its decision whether to do a single focus water element or an integrated set of water issues within our general plan.
My comments, my 2 cents worth here is that I've been in this county for 40 years. Some of you people have been here a lot longer, but in my recollection, this is the first and best or closest I've seen to cooperation between the county as an entity and CCWD and the possibility of the other water purveyors and wastewater treatment people. So I think it's a golden opportunity for us to pursue this. Obviously, the land use issues and planning are at the forefront of every media, every discussion, every meeting we have, and it seems to me that the planning process in Calaveras County is more or less being held hostage by these issues, by the availability of water and the treatment of wastewater. That propels this issue to a level for me where I do believe that it would be an advantage to have a standalone water element so that we have a guide, a roadmap, as it were, for the rest of the general plan to be guided by. This is a paramount issue, and it's getting more and more critical every single day. The fact that CCWD is offering to take the lead in researching and financing this element is an opportunity that I don't think we should easily pass up. I guess I want to ask, if it only costs $40,000, can we put the other $10,000 into the rest of the general plan? We can reduce some efficiencies there, but without getting into any further detail, that's pretty much where I'm.
All right. Any other questions leading into public comments? Any other issues? Tom, want to wait? Rita.
I don't have questions. I do have comments, but there might be questions or clarifications later. Water and land use are structurally isolated in this county. They're planned by different agencies, different timeframes, and different methodologies. And I do support that we have water components of the general plan done by CCWD et al. However they want to come up with the money and deal with the other water districts within the county. The Office of Planning and Research and Department, DWR, Department of Water Resources. Thank you. I'm on their water plan, you'd think I'd know. Do suggest a new element regarding water and wastewater. My concern about having an element is that it would then bring oversight into the general plan on that element, from example, DWR. We, the counties of California, are constantly now fighting with the Office of Planning and Research on general plans. And we're starting slowly, as our cities, I see some city people here, starting to lose control of the general plan. And by having an element that then becomes an oversight issue by some agency in Sacramento. There are 7 mandatory elements. Agriculture came to us this morning. They want their own element. That's 8. This is 9. Economics wants 1, so that's 10. So really, what is it important that you have your element, or that you have the components, which are the policies and implementation, as part of the general plan? For example, we could have a natural element, which could include open space, water, agriculture, climate, habitat. And then in land use, you could have water also. 5 of the 7 elements now require some component of water. So are we then asking that we're going to pull these parts of water from these 5 elements and then take them out and put it into an element called water? I'm concerned that we're more interested in the title, i.e., and I see the ag community here, that we have an element called ag or water or housing or land use or conservation or open space or safety, then we are concerned with the integration of what's important for the end use. What is a general plan? It's a planning document, so that when someone comes in and wants to do a general plan amendment, they want to do a zoning change, a general plan amendment, they want to do a subdivision, they want conditional use permits, you go to the land use constitution of the county, which is the general plan, and determine are those components for your project meetable. And I'm not as concerned that we have specific elements. I mean, as I said, as of now, we've got 9, and before the economic group gets to us, then we have 10. We have a challenge regarding water. We have intense conflicts over water, including property and the environmental integrity, and those items need to be integrated. I don't necessarily know it has to be integrated with a separate element. So to cut to the chase, I'm a maybe no.
Okay.
I mean, I'm like to think I'm open, but
yes.
Is it possible to finish the 7 mandatory elements and then continue working on a general plan?
There's every quarter we have an opportunity to amend our general plan, and I suppose we could do it in that way, but I think it's the general desire of this board to, we initially went for a comprehensive review of our general plan this time, and I think our desire is to keep Humpty Dumpty, or put part of Humpty Dumpty back together and keep it together after that. I will sort of let my thoughts be known. I'm not yet taking a position on this. I want to hear the rest of the public speak, but I'm interested in a couple of things for people with experience in this. I am very keen on tying land use to water policy. I find the absence, if you look at our general plan today, you see almost nothing relating to water, so I'm not sure, that we would have to pull a whole lot of things out of a whole lot of places to get a separate water element. But I am curious what the advantages and disadvantages. I've heard very little of discussion so far on this about what we get from a separate element that we can't get in integrating water policies, and especially as relates to land use and other planning. I also want to make sure that we don't get into the kind of circumstances that some other counties have gotten in, where they are accidentally and without policy moving water from ag uses to residential uses. Without a policy, I guess we just kind of wing that kind of thing, but sooner or later we're going to have to figure out where our food's going to come from. So that's an issue that I hope to hear something about. I'm also interested in the kind of integrated effort, so I understand why we're talking about these two things together. But to get more money for the kinds of projects that we need to do, we're going to have to throw a better look at the funding agencies, and I think this is a good step. This joint meeting is a good step toward that, but I'm interested in the decisions that we might make and how that might give advantage to better acquisition of funds. Finally, I guess what I would hope for is that we'd get the best advice from folks who intend to speak here on these key decisions, so that we can ultimately come to the right conclusion. So with that, I will call...
I'd like
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes. I'm curious, we spread water over all of the elements, or we have it in several of the elements, and I'm concerned about the amount of expertise we have to address the water specifically in each one of those elements. Whereas if we had the water element, you know, our forces or our intelligence would be centralized and more effective. You know, can you address the other part of it? You know, who's going to govern what happens in those elements for water, you know, such as natural resources, land use, or what have you? I just want to know that.
Well, fortunately here we have a world-class land use attorney and a number of other folks, and I'm looking forward to their input on that very subject. But I also have a number of cards that are in here, and I'll try to get them in some order. I'm assuming when people say water plan, you're talking that you're asking to speak on this topic before us. If not, just go ahead and decline. I think the first in here was Penny Sarvis. Do you wish? Doesn't want to. Mickey Williamson. Going to pass. Tom Infusino. Not going to pass. Okay. Single document.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Infusino, and I'm facilitator of the Calaveras Planning Coalition. The coalition is an association of individuals and community groups active in land use issues in Calaveras County. The coalition's mission is to promote public participation in land use and resource planning to ensure a healthy human, natural, and economic environment now and in the future. The coalition encourages the county to comprehensively address water issues in the general plan update. Water has so many uses that it regularly permeates our daily lives. Biologists tell us that water is essential to life, all life, plant or animal, tame or wild, and thus we consume it to quench our thirst and to produce our food. Chemists call water the universal solvent, and so we use it to clean almost every surface around us, including ourselves. Water is literally that which floats our boats, and thus we recreate in it and travel on its surfaces. Water has the power to flood our neighborhoods, and so we try to control its path with clear channels, massive dams, and sturdy levees. Water constantly challenges the limits of our infrastructure to store it, to move it, to purify it, and to reuse it. Water cycles from storms, through soils, down streams, and to seas ceaselessly. Water generates the electricity that turns our darkness into light. Water is the medium in which we are baptized into an eternal relationship with the Almighty. Yesterday, I stood at the summit of Round Top Peak, and viewed from 10,000 feet above sea level the Crystal Range that is the headwaters of the American River, the forested hills of the Cosumnes River watershed, the steep canyons of the McCullum River watershed, and in the distance, the mountains that are the headwaters of the Stanislaus River. These watersheds, like baffles and billows, concentrate fluid and force into the mighty rivers that run to those seas. When one gets closer to the ground, however, one sees that the watersheds are changing over time. Changes in forest composition through fire, through tree disease, through timber harvesting practices, and through residential and road developments. And changes in water diversions, and changes in snowfall. Given these watershed changes, Without proper planning and without coordination among the agencies, our multiple uses of water can conflict, resulting in harmful and expensive consequences. The Coalition feels that better coordinating water and land use planning, through this we can avoid these harmful and expensive consequences in the future. On behalf of the Coalition, I would like to thank the Calaveras County and the CCWD boards for holding this hearing today to continue the dialogue on planning and coordination. In preparation for this hearing, I first reviewed how other cities and counties have dealt with water issues in their general plans. According to the 2007 California Planners Book of Lists, 17 counties and 28 cities in California have optional water sections in their general plans. This list includes 6 Sierra Nevada counties. Some counties, like Nevada County, have an entire chapter in their general plan devoted to water issues, while others have a water section in their conservation element. The packets I provided to the CCWD board and to the Board of Supervisors contain excerpts from those general plans that deal with water. Next, I looked at how the current Calaveras County general plan deals with water and compared that to how other cities and counties have treated water issues in their general plans. The existing Calaveras County general plan has 2 water policies regarding single-family residential use and 3 policies dealing with sewage treatment in the land use element. It has 2 other water policies discussing in-county water projects and cooperation among water supply providers in the conservation element. It has another 2 policies regarding water-related recreation in the open space element, and it has 2 other policies regarding flooding in the safety element. None of these related water policies are cross to the others. These 11 policies are in contrast to the number of water policies in the general plans of other Sierra counties. Nevada County has 17 policies, El Dorado has 18 policies, and Mono County has 30 policies relating to water. In addition, general plans from other Sierra Nevada counties deal with a broader spectrum of water issues. The top 10 issues treated in the water sections of other general plans include water supply, water conservation, water reclamation, groundwater management, flooding, pollution prevention, runoff control, building setbacks from waterways, data collection, and intergovernmental cooperation. Not surprisingly, those first 5 issues I rattled off there were also raised by the public here in Calaveras County during the general plan workshops. Also, 8 of the top 10 issues are discussed in the very fine general plan issues and opportunities report you will be discussing later this afternoon. Finally, some counties provide specific implementation programs for water issues. For example, both in Nevada and Placer counties, you'll see that they implement their general plan provisions through comprehensive surface and groundwater management programs. The conclusion I drew from this review is that it would make sense to include detailed water sections in the Calaveras County General Plan update. Such a section would deal with the issues addressed in the current general plan. Such a section would deal with the issues raised by the public during the general plan workshops. Such a section would deal with the additional issues raised in the General Plan Issues and Opportunities Report. And finally, I think such a section would place Calaveras County General Plan back in the mainstream with other Sierra Nevada counties facing similar water-related challenges. Thank you, and God bless. Are there any questions?
Did you have any specific recommendation as to whether it should be a standalone section or integrated into other sections?
Well, yes and no. If you recall, in general, when we've had previous hearings on general plan, those folks from the board will remember, the coalition had presented an outline in which chapters of each chapter would be found in the mandatory elements of the general plan. Since then, however, we've heard testimony from the agricultural element folks and the economic element folks, so we've kind of seen that if the mood of the board is shifting to have more optional elements, and the board wants to go that way, that's up to the board. So whether it's in a single element, like the conservation element, and in one spot, or if it's in a standalone optional element, we'll be happy either way, because as Marita said, what matters is the content and not necessarily the title. As the thing I did leave out here possibly that may be helpful for you is in other general plans, like in the Nevada County General Plan, Where they do have the some elements outside the water issues outside the water element, they reference those in the water element. So you know, oh, by the way, for stream side setbacks for development, you have to look in the land use element, or for water conservation issues, you have to look in another element. So that's how they deal with those.
Thank you. I believe Chairman or President Dean has a question as well.
Yeah, very quickly, Tom, do you see an advantage to having a water element as opposed to having it placed throughout the general plan?
I see them both ways. As I said, there's pluses and minuses. If you want to go through the pluses and minuses, I can go through some of them. The pluses of concentrating in a single place is that it gives you one place to look for water issues. The downside of an optional element for some people, so it might be a positive for some of you, is that optional elements, unlike the mandatory elements, can be pretty much amended anytime you want. You know, you can have gone through your 4 mandatory general plan element changes, and you know, the next Tuesday said, oh, we forgot the water element change. Then you go back and change the water element if it's an optional element. So whether you think that's a positive or a negative, that's kind of up to you. But it's what's absolutely critical, and I think what everybody's sort of supported today, is the need for somehow integrating the information, whether it's in separate elements, whether it's in one element, whether it's in a mandatory element, or whether it's in an optional element.
Do you see any issues with integration? If it's a standalone element or a standalone chapter, do you see problems with integration in references to other elements in the general plan?
Again, you know, and I don't mean this to be an advertisement for Mantier & Associates, but it's going to sound that way. They're very capable. And if you decided that you wanted to have an integrated water element, they would be very capable of cross-referencing it to other aspects of the general plan. So I guess I wouldn't worry about cross-referencing. I think they'll be able to handle it, right, Larry? Okay. So. Is that it? Okay. Thank you.
Any staff comments on this before we move to a board poll?
Good afternoon, Robert Solomon, Planning Director.
Go ahead.
Whether you have an integrated element or whether you have an independent element is, to a degree, a matter of form over function. Now, that in some ways may seem somewhat trivial, but it's really not. Under the California General Plan law, we are required to look at water from a number of different aspects. That includes not only the domestic uses, it includes the environmental uses. It includes looking at how do we preserve our economic as well as our environmental uses of that water through the long term. We talk about the fact that we're talking of a land use element that may be 20 years in length. The reality, we're talking about commitments to land use, as I've said before, that start at 75 years and keep going up because our houses are lasting that long, our businesses are lasting that long, our commitments to all infrastructure are long or longer. So it's not just a simple question of, is it documented? So we need to look at what the general plan law requires. And I'm going to suggest to you there's a couple of things that we do need to consider. All of these elements or all of these issues need to be fully and thoroughly integrated into a general plan. You know, under the general plan law, there are currently 7 elements. When I started in this business, there were 9. The law is specific. Each has to be interrelated. Neither is more important. No one is more important than any other. So there is a question, what is our general plan? And it is truly the compilation of all of the pieces. And no piece has greater weight than any other piece. So should there be a separate element? The board in front of me, which is 2 boards, has to appreciate that only one of you is going to get to choose what that element is. Only one of you is going to get to enforce that element, and only one of you is going to get sued over whether or not you did a good enough job and you continue to do a good enough job.
I'll vote yes.
And you want that one to be yes, right? However, there are other considerations as well. There are sovereignty issues. What we have here is a somewhat unique case where the county has absolutely no control over water and sewer facilities. That's different than in most jurisdictions. So you may really want to present a plan to us, and then you may not like it after we adopt it, but if you do it in the general plan, you may get stuck with it. So there are some considerations of sovereignty that shouldn't be treated too lightly. There are environmental issues. Whatever we do, we're going to have to look at environmentally. And that may cause us to have a concern from the county standpoint. Are we ultimately going to be doing environmental reviews in the process of doing a general plan that consider our good friend CCWD's long-term growth processes that are really beyond our control? I assume you'll find some way to work that out, but it is not a simple issue. There are some very real issues there as well. I suppose the last thing that's probably also important is not everything that would be important for the CCWD and the rest of the utilities is important to the county relative to the legal requirements of a general plan. There are some things that would be very important for you as a district to have in your integrated plans that are not part of the county's plan. But once they're adopted as an element to the county's general plan, they're there. And I think I have a slight disagreement with Tom. Once that element is part of our general plan, it, like every other piece of the general plan, is subject to that 4-year amendment, 4 times a year amendment, and that can cause some issues. You may also find yourself getting dragged into things under general plan challenges that were policy issues that really were intended to be your part of this discussion rather than the county's. So there are some integration and some other considerations. I guess my suggestion to you is the final decision doesn't need to be completed until we're done with the studies and we've looked at all those integration issues and seen whether or not we've covered everything. Okay? If the county determines that everything we need to cover is within our general plan as an integrated part of the current uses, then the board could determine that we don't need a separate element. If we find later that, we've done that, but there are some other things that we would like to see optionally added, and there is a desire to in essence, form that into an element, you can do that. But that decision is the last step. It doesn't have to be the first. What we need to look at first is, what does the law require us to do? How many pieces have we got between us, and how do we integrate all of those considerations? It is a very daunting task, and respectfully, the views of the water issues of CCWD are not the exclusive uses or views of how water should be used in this county. And we need to be careful how we approach balancing all of those issues. And the thing we haven't really talked about is the other side of the issue is the wastewaters that also have to be looked at. And I don't want a consideration of a water element distracting from what the full range of the considerations are. So, number of points to consider. I don't think the answer has to be determined today. I think the answer is a commitment of the county, and I'm sure it's the commitment of our staff to make sure that whatever the general plan law requires, we fully integrate with the agencies that implement that. We've got a contractor who's committed to getting our general plan out, and that's your next set of discussions. So I guess I'd say that the final decision as to the form can wait until we have a better handle on what all the issues are and how we're going to approach them.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we call on additional public speakers, I wanted to check in on one question. What the recommendation before us is to have the CCWD fund
to the tune of $40,000 work on a water element. Do you see a distinction between a water element and a devotion to the issues that were raised in the public and here today on getting water components in and then making a determination as to whether it's a separate element or integrated into the rest of the general plan? Is the funding dependent on making one of the two choices, or is that one and the same to you?
Well, specifically, our board did vote last year to have a separate element distinct from the integrated portions of it. So it's not to say that we would, in order to help you comply with the legal requirements, have those cross-references or whatever, but I think our board has been unanimous in support of a separate element.
Okay, thank you. I think that we would, I know I would certainly be open. I'm not, I haven't decided either way. I mean, it was really the only option that we were given. And so I think that's why we discussed it as such. But I think with more information, we might be willing to do something else if your board decides it needs to be a comprehensive, a thorough look at the water, wastewater, for agriculture, environmental issues, and economic and residential. We need to look at it thoroughly. And I don't know that our board, I know I'm not going to speak for our board. I know I don't care how it gets in there. It just needs to be significant. Because we feel that the water is the most critical issue. It's step one for any new development. Is there water there? Because you're not going to have it without it. Is there, even for agriculture or anything, is there water there? And so we just want to make sure that that's addressed.
All right, thank you. I now turn to Randy Crutcher from Focus.
Well, the conversation got a little more technical and complex there with the last two or three speakers. But when I first started listening to the conversation, it seemed like it was framed as either or, one or the other. But then it seemed to evolve into more of a both and. What if we have a separate element that makes us competitive, as Ed is saying, with an IRWMP within an element, competitive for those millions of dollars that can go into infrastructure, if that's the case, as well as cross-referencing sections that have to do with how well water is integrated in the other elements. So I'm seeing the conversation begin to shift to a both and, perhaps, rather than an either or. And I just want to leave you with that frame and my sense of where things might be going with that conversation.
Thank you. Paul Stein.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I was reminded, sitting here listening to the discussion on water for the past hour or whatever it was, and looking over at Marita and remembering that when I was on the board, I had water was one of my critical and most high priorities. And my colleague, former supervisor Delorto, right when I came onto the board, he told me, watch those water rights. You don't want to lose those water rights. And I thought, well, I know quite a bit about water. I've raised fish in it for 25 years. I must be qualified. Turns out when I got on the board, I didn't know anything about water except how to raise a fish in it. So it's an interesting point, though, that Calaveras County is blessed with some of the best water rights in California, basically because we're one of the 17 original counties in California. But that doesn't mean that those water rights will always be there for us unless we perfect them. And that, I think, is the point of the discussion here today, in that I remember when I was first on the board, there was a discussion with CCWD possibly selling some of those water rights to San Joaquin County, selling some of those water rights to Amador County, and the board and myself, quite frankly, leading some of that discussion, was incensed that they could talk to anybody else about selling Calaveras County's water rights. So it just strikes me as a complete circle now, coming back with Bob and Ed's help and CCWD board, that they're now coming to the county saying, we want to be a part of the general plan. We want to help we want the county to help us perfect and protect water rights in Calaveras County, and the board seems to be a little bit unsure or maybe ambivalent about it. I can state, in very clear terms, unequivocally, that I think it's a great idea to have a water element in the general plan, because I do see it as a way to help protect those water rights. I do see it as a way, as Ed has said, to help enhance your ability to get federal funding, state funding, and bond money from the state of California if you have an integrated approach to it. Putting on my last hat that I currently wear as a developer, I also see that there is a lot of infrastructure dysfunction in Calaveras County. By having the ability within the general plan to talk about water and to pre-plan for where sewage ponds are going to go and tertiary water ponds are going to go and how you're going to spread out that water, I think is absolutely essential to the future of Calaveras County. So while we're blessed with a lot of water rights, I think that there's a way to help protect those water rights from incursion from the outside, and at the same time have a more integrated plan so that you can build the infrastructure needed for future development. So I would just consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more card in from Marty Crane from Valley Springs.
Hi. I've been listening, as all the rest of us have, and I'm pretty basic, organizational kind of person, and I understand what Marita was saying, that this is a living document. It is a research document, and we have to think about who's going to use it. The people that were sitting here today maybe weren't here 10 years ago, maybe it'll be different names and faces in 10 years from now. And being a research document, it occurs to me that we want it to be as simplistic and easily accessible as possible. And so I hear separate element incorporated into all the different elements or topics or whatever we're calling them now. And so it occurs to me that the water is such a complex and important, as the others are, but important piece of this puzzle, that if we were to leave it to the experts, those, not me, those that know all about water and how to manage and preserve and the rights and everything, leave it to those people to actually draft that. And then in that draft, if it could, I'm sure it would be addressing all the different aspects of our plan. If it could then be required that in every single element or topic we have, that this particular document be an addendum to that, a required addendum to that particular, to each one, then whenever they go to a specific topic, they would be required to look at the sub document. It just seems more logistically simple. So is it not possible to do it that way, and that way the attachment can be reviewed at any time whenever it needs to be reviewed or amended, but still not be a separate thing, but be separate down below? Maybe I didn't say that right, but I hope you get the point.
Okay, I'd like to do just an agenda check. We're now an hour over time allotted and heading for a very important discussion on our general plan. I don't want to get further into how we're going to paginate this, but if anybody has, I have one more card here, and then would like to move to the board conclusion on this. So I will call on Mike Delordo, who is coming from the organization called SELF.
I'm in a large group, but I'm here by myself. You know, fire is very important. We're almost ready to burn down. I think we ought to have a fire element. You have 29 departments, I think, and they're very hard to keep track of. My first thought is the more elements you add to the general plan, the more things that people have to look at. But I also think before you decide you're going to have the element, you probably ought to look at the words that would go or be used to be part of the element, or the policies that would be part of the element, to decide whether they're better placed around or in. I mean, we're just saying let's have an element. Having an element is not sufficient. You need the policies and the words first. Thank you for your time.
Okay, that is the last card we have, so I'd like to move to the board, ask what is the Board of Supervisors, ask what is your pleasure at this point, having heard from all this wisdom.
Okay.
Supervisor Callaway.
Okay. All right. My pleasure is that there's another option besides element or no element. And listening to Mr. Andrews talk would be for this to go back to, yes, I believe Calaveras County would like $50,000 from CCWD et al. To do water components. However we want to title that we go back to CCWD, ask them if they would support the idea of just components versus an element. The end result is the same on the functions of water and wastewater policies. I mean, as I thought I heard Jeff say, I mean, that was the option that was open to them. That was the option they took. The intent was to be part of the general plan update for $50,000. If they need to mechanically go through and make some wordsmith changes, I would like to propose that we do that, assuming the board wants to accept their $50,000.
It's actually their 50,000.
Okay, moving down the line, Supervisor Claudino.
Can we get the money now and decide later? I guess not. Obviously I will be supportive of whatever this board decides to do, and it seems right now that we're all over the map. But I have to say that I'm still leaning toward the idea of an independent element. And my reasoning is simply that when issues come before the Planning Commission and come before the board, there's often a conflict because this code says one thing, the ordinance says something else, and as often as not we go back to, well, let's see what the general plan says. And the general plan is the rule we have to go by. If Mr. Vecino is correct, there are 11 different policies now that deal with water, and they're not necessarily coordinated, and some of them conflict. And we see this with almost every project that comes to the board. If that sort of thing could be reduced or even eliminated, it would be a lot better for both the applicants, whether they be developers or homeowners, and for the commissions or make the decisions about their projects. The other thing is what Paul Stein had to say about the perfection of these water reservations into water rights and the possibility of funding to help us do that, being long-range projects that they are. So I do think that there's an advantage to having an independent element that all the other elements, all the other zoning ordinances and codes can look to. Where the general plan for when it comes to land use is talking about where will we put industry, where will we put commerce, where will we put schools, and I don't see any disadvantage to having an element that's going to say where will we put these infrastructure resources. So obviously I'm just trying to say that I'm open to listen to all sides of any argument here. I think that staff has to perhaps do a little more research for us and tell us what the possibilities are, the liabilities for going either way. And what Rita had to say is also quite important to find out from the Calaveras County Water District if they are willing to modify this to be all or nothing. And I don't think they meant it to be that way. As Jeff said, that's the only option that they had at the time. So there may be a compromise, but at this point, without any further argument or knowledge, I still would like to see an independent element.
Thank you, Supervisor Thomas.
I won't repeat all of what I said before, but I do want to emphasize again that I think it's important to have a standalone element. It'll be, in my mind, be easier to get to where we want to be right now. We could get there faster to let folks like Montgomery Watson help us do that. That's enough about that, but it'll also help future revisions as we go through the next decade or the decade after that to hold that separate document up and look to see where it needs to be changed, if it needs to be changed, and it can be done by a smaller group of people. So, but also, of course, with the input of all of the agencies required. So that's my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Tryon.
I strongly support the inclusion of an independent water element. I say that knowing full well that the other elements, many of them will integrate water considerations within those elements, but I think it's important that we identify our sources of water, our water rights, our delivery and conveyance systems, our treatment plants, and how we're going to go about utilizing water in a policy objective so that we can secure those water rights. I don't think we can do that by just incorporating water in the housing element or the land use element or other elements. I think there has to be an overriding policy that the others are subordinate to. So I support an independent water element at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. There being 3 supervisors that favor an independent standalone water element, my comments won't matter on that subject, so I'll make comments on another. As several speakers suggested, it is the content of this that really...
That's not fair, Steve.
I will state my position in the end, but I want to focus my comments on something else. We're in receipt of a document where there's a paragraph that I think puts it rather well. Water supply, water conservation, water reclamation, groundwater management, flooding, pollution prevention, runoff control, building setbacks from waterways, data collection, and intergovernmental cooperation seem to me to really succinctly outline the areas that we need much more comprehensive and in-depth language and implementation measures so that what we say we want to do actually gets done. I personally didn't really care where it went. What I really do care about is that we have good, strong language and that water get its rightful and due consideration under comprehensive policy guidelines that this board needs to set. And I think, again, the ag issues, we're early in this, so we haven't really screwed it up yet. But when I see other counties that used to rely on ag devoting their water to new residential subdivisions, I find that to be relatively short-sighted as a national policy, let alone a local one. So I'm hoping we can be careful not to get into that pattern. I will vote in favor of a standalone. I think it makes sense, just as much sense as the integrated one, but we have a clear board majority and we're ready to move forward on that subject. We accept the proposal, I guess, from the CCWD. My hope is that we'll get some meat on those bones and that our CAO and other staff involved, including our contracted Mr. Mintier, will move to figure out how to exercise this and that we can get a complete approach put before both boards to adopt forthwith. I don't know how long that will take. I would hope it would be within the next a matter of weeks rather than months, and I think it's clear that this is a priority for both boards. And I guess it's all in the spirit of better late than never. Supervisor Stein and Supervisor Delardo, I know you must feel somewhat vindicated at this moment, since these were issues you struggled for many years ago. Shall we move briefly to a discussion of the integrated plan, or I guess the only remaining thing is whether the Board of Supervisors will participate to the tune of $13,000. Wasn't on our agenda, but I would like that, if possible, to be brought back before the board 2 weeks from today.
Seems like a fair trade to me.
Well, I always thought it was a great idea when people propose something to cover its cost, but we're happy to consider this, and I'd like to see whether the board's okay with a discussion of this in 2 weeks brought before the board on an agendized item. Supervisor Tryon?
That's fine. Bring it to the board.
Thomas? Marita?
No, not until budget time. We have this. That is the time when we talk about whether we're going to spend $13,500 or an additional $500. I don't want to piecemeal this. Thank you.
All right, and I will be a yes on that as well. So there are 4 yeses, and we'll have it agendized, and we can discuss where it might come from, if anywhere. All right, now we will move to adjourn the joint meeting, which will be accomplished by President Dean, and then move to our, have a brief recess and move. There'll be a 5-minute recess after this, in which we will then move to the general plan discussion.
CCWD's portion of this meeting is over, and I adjourn the CCWD board.
Thank you. 5-minute recess. Okay, we're going to resume the Board of Supervisors meeting of August the 5th. We are now on item 17, the purported 2:30 p.m. Community Development Agency discussion and possible action regarding general plan update, accept public input, and provide direction to staff regarding the draft issues and opportunities report and the draft working vision statement and guiding principles document. This comes to us via the Community Development Agency, and I will go to Bob to begin this, but my understanding of the procedure will be that we'll hear a 20 to 25-minute report from Mr. Mintier. We will then move to public comment, and then we'll determine what to do next if any time permits. So take it away, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be very brief. We are asking you to basically listen to Mr. Mentier's report to you. Okay. We're asking you to, I guess it's on. Listen to Mr. Mentier's report, review the progress we have made on the general plan. We've lost a little bit of time, but we are now committed to making up that time and getting us back on track and keeping things moving. We are to the issues and opportunities portion, and as quickly as this is done, we will be working towards the ultimate preparation of the alternates and ultimately the draft. We're going to have to take a little bit of time to figure out how to rework this little change from this afternoon's work, but we'll integrate that into the whole program and go from there. So with that, I'm going to just step aside and get out of the way. I'll move back over on the side. If you have questions, I can come back.
Come over here, Bob, where I talk to you.
No, I think I'll go over there. And we'll turn it over to Larry and Rick and let them take care of it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, Larry Mintier, Mintier & Associates, and Rick Keller and I, who's the project manager for the general plan update, will be sharing this presentation again. As the chairman suggested, we'll be taking 20 to 25 minutes, no longer, to set the stage for public input and the public discussion. We're going to be talking about 2 types of information today. The first is the vision statement and guiding principles, and the second is the issues and opportunities report. The purpose of this meeting, and if it's continued into the future, the subsequent meeting, is to solicit the board's direction, input and direction on the vision statement and the guiding principles and on the issues and opportunities. I think it's important for me to point out to the board and to the public that we're in a transitional phase. We're not trying to make major policy decisions right now. What we're trying to do is establish a solid foundation for decisions that will be made in the alternatives phase. So what we want to know is have we gotten it right so far? Do we understand what we've learned from correctly? Do we understand correctly what we've learned from the background report and all the policy input that we've gotten from the board and, of course, the public input? So we're going to be asking you to respond to 4 questions, again, focusing on how we've done so far in sort of capturing and documenting what we've learned. First, have we done a good job in drafting an overall vision statement for the county for the next 25 to 30 years, and it's accompanied by a set of guiding principles. So have we done a good job? Have we done a good job in outlining a vision statement? Secondly, have we done a good job in listing and categorizing and describing the most significant issues and opportunities and key questions for land use and other forms of development, other issues over the next 20 to 25 years here in Calaveras County? Third, are there things that we've missed or things that we've mischaracterized? And finally, which of the issues and opportunities are going to be the most compelling, the most driving issues for the general plan update? Which of the issues are going to require the most time? So first, how have we done on the vision statement? Second, how have we done on summarizing the issues and opportunities? Third, are there things we've missed? Fourth, again, what do you think are going to be the biggest driving issues? So first, I'm going to talk about the overall general plan update program, talk about the vision statement, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rick. We have essentially completed phases 1 and 2. That was part of an earlier contract. It's important for the board to recall that there is a supplement that we are preparing now to the baseline report. It focuses on economic conditions. That chapter has been completed. It's with staff right now for their review, and so within a matter of weeks, presumably, there will be a new chapter added to the baseline report on economic conditions. We are currently in phase 3, issues, opportunities, and vision, and again, that sets the stage for sets the stage for phase 4, which is the alternatives, which is where the real decision-making will begin to occur. Now, in terms of what we've been doing in phase 3, we started with a board kickoff meeting. We participated in a round of community workshops, you'll recall, last December. Since that time, we've been working with staff on developing this issues and opportunities report and developing the draft vision statement. And here we are at today's board meeting looking for your direction. So let's go first to the vision statement and guiding principles. We've developed this statement and the principles from input that we've heard from community groups, community workshops, the last round, actually both the first 2 rounds of workshops, input we've gotten from the Board of Supervisors and, of course, county staff. This vision statement and the principles will be refined as we move forward into phase 4, and it'll be refined based on input here in phase 3. It'll be refined in phase 4. Could be refined yet again as it's actually incorporated into the preface of the general plan policy document. So it's a starting point. We want to know if we're sort of in the right ballpark in terms of capturing the essence of the future vision for the county. Here's the very short vision statement that we've developed, again, with staff. The historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources, and the distinction of its physical beauty will continue to create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable and memorable experience for visitors to the county. That's the overall vision statement. It's followed by 12 principles, and these are designed to support the overall vision statement, and I'll go through them very quickly. The history of the gold rush era will be alive in the culture of distinctive communities that provide a high quality of life for generations of residents. 2, open space, wildlife habitat, scenic vistas, agricultural lands, forests, rivers, and lakes will be protected and maintained for wildlife habitat, productive grazing, and agricultural lands and recreation. 3, communities will have clear boundaries and be separated from one another by working landscapes, green belts, or parks. 4, communities will have distinct centers where shopping, medical services, childcare, schools, jobs, and infrastructure are available. They will provide a range of housing types and affordability so people of all income levels can live in the same community. 5, businesses will thrive in a strong local economy based on sustainable natural resources and innovative industries. New opportunities for economic development will capitalize on advanced technology and catalyze growth and innovation. 6, visitors from around the state, indeed around the country, will be attracted to Calaveras County's historic communities, local businesses, recreation areas, and wineries. Tourism will play a major role in the local economy and protection of natural and scenic resources.
The report structure. There's a several-page introduction that talks about the whole general plan update process, the documents that have been produced so far, the baseline report, and it talks about a brief summary of the 2 rounds of community workshops that we've conducted so far, and talking about the next steps in the general plan update. And then the main portion of the document consists of 8 countywide topic areas. And under each of these topic areas, we identify 1 or more issues, we identify 1 or more opportunities, as well as 1 or more key policy questions. There's also introductory language at the start of each topic that talks about that topic in general, which is related to baseline report information and summarizes that. So the major topic areas that we cover in the report. And again, these are the ones that we felt, based on the workshops and based on the discussions with staff and based on Board of Supervisors' input, these are the topic areas that kept on coming up again and again. And so topic 1, community planning and open space protection. And this is a broad topic involving all sorts of subtopics: land use, agriculture, agricultural protection, the design of communities, where future growth should go. Topic 2, economic development, opportunities, and markets. Topic 3 is infrastructure capacity, financing, and maintenance, and included this are discussions about water and wastewater. Topic 4, transportation and mobility. Topic 5, public health and safety. Topic 6, housing affordability and diversity. Topic 7, county government operations. And topic 8, social infrastructure. And so everybody has or most people have the document in front of them, and so we're not going to go too much in depth, but just to cover the issues that we're identifying under each of the topic areas as well as the opportunities. And in the document itself, there are a number of key policy questions that go along with each topic. And these key policy questions are things to keep in mind. We want to make sure that we're asking the right questions right now so that we can start to answer them as we move into the process in the alternatives phase and then in the goals and policies phase. But if we're not asking the right questions now, we're not going to get the right answers down the line. So the issues that we're covering under topic 1, countywide land use patterns, protection of open space and existing landscapes, and community identity, services, and design. And then we discuss under the opportunity topic there, tools and techniques for open space protection. Topic 2, economic development, opportunities and markets. A number of issues that we break out under this topic: jobs, housing balance, the issue of limited retail and service options, and educational opportunities and job training. And opportunities we've identified under economic development are local economy and small business development, tourism and recreation, and agricultural resources and wineries. And a lot of these have been discussed and raised at the economic forum that was held recently. Topic 3, infrastructure capacity, financing, and maintenance. And so we cover that as an overall issue in terms of capacity, financing, and maintenance for lots of different types of infrastructure. And we also focus on water quality, supply, and rights as an issue in the document. And we're looking at telecommunications capacity as an opportunity under this topic. Topic 4, transportation and mobility. 3 issues we go into detail on: traffic congestion and road maintenance, limited public transit, and limited bike and pedestrian facilities. And we look at the airport as an opportunity. Topic 5, public health and safety. And looking at three issues under this topic: emergency response times and capacity, flooding and fire safety, and air quality. Topic 6, housing affordability and diversity. 2 major issues we address: workforce housing affordability and diversity, and the issue of senior housing. And then we look at residential developments as an opportunity and discuss both recent residential developments and planned and the possible shape of future residential developments in the county. Topic 7, county government operations, and we have a discussion on county government resources and funding under this topic. Topic 8, social infrastructure, and social infrastructure includes a lot of subtopics, including care for seniors. The issue we focused on and that we were receiving a lot of input on was the issue of child care under this topic. And those are the 8 topics that we cover in the report. And the questions that Larry had put forth earlier are the ones that we're looking for input today on. Again, the key policy questions in the document are ones that we're raising and ones that we can discuss today, but I don't think we're going to, that we have the time to answer those. And indeed, the work program is, we're looking at answering those down the line. We want to make sure we're raising the right questions. But in terms of the documents that we're presenting today, again, we have 4 questions, and we're looking for input from the community on these as well. Have we done a good job in drafting an overall vision for Calaveras County for the next 20-25 years in the draft working vision statement and the 12 guiding principles that go along with it? Have we done a good job in describing the most significant issues and opportunities and the key questions that the county will face, the key policy questions over the next 25 to 30 years? And are there major issues or opportunities that are missing in this report, or that we're not describing or characterizing correctly? And finally, which of the issues and opportunities from your perspective are going to be the most important or demand the most attention as part of the general plan update? And it might be all of the above.
So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. I would close with one caveat. As you look at this report, you may think that we've called something an issue when it's an opportunity, or it's an opportunity when you think it should be an issue. And my answer to that concern is, doesn't matter. We've tried to sort it out along those lines because we found that some we couldn't really argue were so much an issue as they were an opportunity. So anyway, the distinction between the two is somewhat artificial, and ultimately it's not important whether we have it as an issue or an opportunity. What's important is that we've got the words right and the ideas captured.
All right, thank you. At this point, I want to first express my appreciation for those of you who have attended here and stuck through the day. This is your moment. and we would very much like to hear from you on any or all of these issues. Please do not feel obligated to answer each one of them, but whatever you have on your mind, you are now welcome to share. You can step up to the mic here, and one at a time if possible. We'd ask people to try to time limit their comments to the usual public comment time of 5 minutes or less.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. I just wanted to say that I'm a member of the group called Greater Valley Springs Advisory Group. We have been working with the planning department. Stephanie Moreno and her staff were very helpful, and the staff continues to be very helpful. And considering the inclusion of the vision statement that we have put together as a group for the general plan update for the Valley Springs area. Unfortunately, the head of our group is out of town today, and he couldn't be here, but he asked through email that somebody mentioned that our group is still alive and well. And by the way, the next meeting, I believe, is September 25th, and you're all welcome to attend that meeting. With respect to the guiding principles, I just wanted to ask if where it says on the bullets under guiding principles, there's a one-page collection of guiding principles here about halfway down. It says development will not outpace the ability of county government to provide adequate services and infrastructure or reduce the level of service provided to existing communities. It's supposed to say provided. My question is that when you evaluate your staff and you evaluate a project before you, when it comes to the impacts of the project, CEQA technically only demands that you review the impacts to the physical environment. Your planning director has stated in the past on land use projects that even though there's going to be an impact, for example, to the sheriff's department, law enforcement, and many other departments, there's going to be impacts to medical care and fire protection districts and so forth. He had stated, and correctly so, that you only have to consider the mandate is only have to consider the impacts to the physical environment. Impacts to law enforcement are not physical environment. What I'm asking is that if this statement here, this guiding principle, means that you will expand the CEQA evaluations to include impacts to other areas, because it says it will not outpace the ability to deliver. And those agencies that don't, I was going to say enjoy, but involve a physical impact or impact to the physical environment, such as I said, law enforcement and so forth, I'm hoping that principle means that you will now expand the CEQA considerations and evaluations on projects. And real quickly, I wanted to mention the very last bullet. It says government services will be efficient and effective with measurable results. Let me make a suggestion that you ask, and maybe this should be directed to CAO, that you ask department heads for goals for the fiscal year. Next fiscal year, my goal is to do whatever, it might be. And then at the end of the year, or shortly thereafter, that they provide you a summary of how they did with respect to accomplishing those goals. And even if they don't provide you goals, it would be nice to see before you could have before you, what each department accomplished during the previous year. And that way you have measurable results. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak here. We had a board of directors meeting at noon, and we spent a lot of time drafting comments for the vision statement. We'd like to share those with you now. Overall, we're concerned about the taxpayers and the property owners. This is very beautiful work of art, and it's almost like saying anything that's not complimentary about this is like being against motherhood and apple pie. And so I hope that you'll forgive me if I inadvertently make you angry. So as we go through this, I'll go quickly because I know my time is limited. The first guiding principle is that the history of the gold rush era can be alive in the culture of distinctive communities that provide a high quality for generations of residents. We're concerned about regulation. With the oppressive high quantity of government, which would be required, the opposite would more likely occur, as shortages and unemployment would tend to increase due to the high level of regulation. High quality life relates more with people than buildings or history. Number two, open space, wildlife, habitat, scenic vistas, agricultural lands, forests, rivers, and lakes will be protected and maintained for wildlife habitat, producing grazing and agricultural lands and recreation. What a beautiful thing. Our comment is, this involves the transfer of control of private land to the public sector and is adverse to productive use and to fire protection. As an example, the worst lands, the most dangerous lands are government lands as far as fire protection. They're not properly managed. And so adding another level of government, unless that level of government was going to address that issue, would do nothing or perhaps even make it worse. Item number three, communities will have clear boundaries and be separated from one another by working landscapes, green belts, or parks. If this, and my response is, if this imposed separation prevented a productive use of a property, all would suffer. Number four, communities will have distinct centers where shopping, medical services, childcare, schools, jobs, infrastructure are available. They will provide a range of housing types and affordability so people of all income levels can live in the same community. We have this now. However, the location of all facilities must be under the control of the owners of those facilities. Otherwise, we could lose needed facilities. Downtown Arnold is suffering from overregulation. Number five, businesses will thrive in a strong local economy based on suitable natural resources and innovative industries. New opportunities for economic development will capitalize advanced technology and catalyze growth and innovation. And that's really a mouthful. Our response, business best thrives in an environment of freedom where the business owner is free to make his own decisions on government regulation. Number six, visitors from around the state will be attracted to Calaveras County's historic communities, local businesses, recreation areas, and wineries. Tourism will play a major role in the local economy and protection of natural and scenic resources. Our response, historic buildings will remain at the desire of the owners because their economic values are enhanced by their historic value. The necessity of statutory regulation to protect supposed historic buildings demonstrates that the supposed historic value may not exist. Otherwise, it would be economically utilized by the owners. Number seven, development will not outpace the ability of county government to provide adequate services and infrastructure or reduce the level of services provided existing communities. Government services, our response, government services should not be used as a tool to restrict growth. The level of government services need to keep pace with development. Number eight, highways and streets will be well maintained, well connected. Public transit, bike, and pedestrian facilities will provide choices for travel within communities to major destinations. Our response, this should occur as people desire and as feasible. Number nine, water quality, water rights will be protected to ensure that they are sustained for future generations. Our response, water quality is protected now, and protection and creation of future water supply has been overlooked. And it would be good to as we did at the earlier session, look into that further. 10, the risks of flooding, fire hazards, and climate change will be mitigated to the greatest extent possible to protect residents. Government restrictions on logging and mismanagement of our forests have and are creating increased fire danger. According to now over 31,000 scientists, the global warming scare is based on junk science. It's not real. And is very dangerous to people everywhere. If you want information on that, go to a website called the Petition Project. And not only will you have what the scientists signed, you'll have all their names. Number 11, residents will have access to medical and emergency services and opportunities for lifelong learning and enrichment at educational institutions. Government overregulation of our healthcare industry has greatly increased the costs and reduced the level of care. Even in spite of that, we're still better in this country than we are in many other countries. Medical emergency and educational goods and services must be paid for by the recipient of those goods and services, not paid for at the expense of others. And the last one, 12, government services will be efficient and effective with measurable results through community involvement and volunteerism. Residents will be active participants in guiding Calaveras County toward a common vision for the future. Community involvement, this is the response, community involvement is good. However, communism has never worked. We must prevent individual rights suffering by the will of the group. It makes no difference whether the group is 1,000 or 10 or just a local mob. This is the primary purpose of the U.S. Constitution. We need to recognize the Constitution in our public planning process. So, in summary, I've attended the workshops, and they're a lot of fun, and I've met some wonderful people. In summary, we seem to be going through a process of transferring control of private property to the public sector or to the government. What we would be most concerned about as we go through this process, that we bear in mind the protection of the private property owner and the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll read that as a resounding no to question number 1 up there.
I'm not even going to go there. Thank you. On the one that says visitors from around the state, tourism will play a major role. And the one just before that, businesses, communities will have distinct centers where shopping. The next sentence, they will provide a range of housing types and affordability so people of all income and mobility levels. Can we add and mobility? Then also, these are quick. On the issues and opportunities report, number 4, transportation and mobility. An issue I see is senior/persons with disabilities transportation support. There are so many people that we don't see and we don't even know they're there because they can't get here, because they can't get on the bus or can't get to the bus. So anyway, we don't even see them, but we know they're there. We know they're there. So that's different from just limited, from addressing the public transit and the limited bike and pedestrian facilities. It's different, it's unique. It's far more involved than that. So that needs to be on the list, I feel. And then on number 6, where it says issues, senior housing, once again, persons with disabilities, if it doesn't even make the list, then I worry that when we say an issue of senior housing, we're looking at that as a nutshell, just old people with fixed incomes. But persons with disabilities, it's a whole new wide range of things. There's a lot more issues involved with that, so I think that needs to be on the list for sure. And then one more, number 8, social infrastructure. We have child care. You mentioned senior care, but it didn't make this list. most definitely needs to be on there. We have so many people in our community that are caregivers, and providing for senior daycares is like critical, because once our caregivers have had it, they've had it. You know, there's nothing there's no place for them to go. And then also, as long as we're talking about our vulnerable populations within the social infrastructure, we have child care, we have senior care, I think we should have youth and family support. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping within your timeline.
I'm Penny Sarvis, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Community Action Project. In May, the Community Action Project sent out a survey to second homeowners in the county. There are people who own property and pay taxes here and live here part-time, but their primary address is elsewhere. The Community Action Project is dedicated to encouraging broad public participation in local government. So we were following up on the community meetings that you all held last summer where the public could give input to the general plan update. We figured that many of the second homeowners wouldn't have been able to be at those meetings. So we sent them a letter explaining about the update process, and we asked them the same questions that were asked at the first round of meetings. What are your community's assets? What are your community's issues? What are the county's assets? And what are the county's issues? We had 56 responses. That was about the same percentage of people in that sample as the percentage of full-time residents who came to the public meetings, interestingly. And many of the second homeowners expressed that they were very grateful to be and eager to be part of the general plan update process. What is striking about the responses to us is how closely they correspond to what full-time residents had to say. They very much support the directions indicated in the Issues and Opportunities Report and the draft vision statement and the guiding principles that have just been presented. So it's timely that it should happen that today I'm making this public comment. What the second homeowners especially value about both their communities and the county are the natural beauty of the place, the open spaces, the rural environment, the small, distinctive, friendly communities, and the gold rush history. What concerns them most is sprawling development. The two biggest challenges they note are, one, how to accommodate growth without jeopardizing the very assets that make the county, and two, how to create and support a vital economy, expanding the number of living wage jobs and the number of locally owned businesses. We have a complete set of the results of that survey, and I have one for each supervisor, and one for Mintier and Associates, and one for the Development Agency, and ask that it be included in the general plan update information. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I approach?
Of course.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Patty.
Good afternoon. Mickey Williamson. On behalf of also the Community Action Project, in addition to the Calaveras Planning Coalition, I will summarize our response to the Issues and Opportunities Report, the vision statement, and the guiding principles with one word: yes. We fully support the documents as they have been presented today, and we would eagerly work with the county towards a general plan that deals with these issues and opportunities and these guiding principles. In 2006, the Calaveras Planning Coalition adopted 11 land use and development principles, and 4 of those are directly correlated with 4 of the 12 guiding principles that were presented today, and the others have reflections in the remaining principles. This year, we adopted 5 goals for the work of the Planning Coalition. They are land use consistent with community visions and goals, protected wildlife habitat, visual quality, agricultural land and open space, adequate infrastructure and services, a vital sustainable economy, and innovative legally compliant planning. And we see all of those reflected in the documents presented today. Also, our new Planning Coalition logo summarizes our quadruple bottom line: nature, humanity, community, economy. And again, we see all 4 of those in the presentation today. What we're most pleased about is that these documents seem to reflect the wishes and the concerns and the visions of the people who have been participating in the general plan update since the beginning. These are the things that we heard in the community workshops that we attended last June and December. So we really hope that these will be the documents that guide the next phase of our conversation, and we pledge our continued participation in this process. Since these questions were raised today in relation to question number 3, are there things that are missing? Probably we could find a few things that we probably would like to see here that haven't been included, but we feel like today is not the time to talk about those. More, we just want to express our continued support in creating a broad program of community participation in the general plan update. And we see that it's a very large vision that is being presented to us today, and it will take the entire county to bring it to fruition. And you have the support of the Calaveras Planning Coalition and all of our member organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Jim Conklin, the Executive Director of the Calaveras County Business Council, and briefly reviewed the vision statement and the guiding principles, and I think we're missing a very important component in especially the visioning statement. And I would characterize it as financial sustainability, because in the visioning statement we're talking about Calaveras County will continue to create a high quality of life for residents. And if you look at the 2008-2009 budget that somehow you folks are going to have to wrestle with, I don't see a continuation of the high quality of life. I see a deterioration of the high quality of life. So the whole idea of how you pay for some of the things that are further down in the guiding principles, at least from my review of the 08-09 budget, the reserve situation for Calaveras County is in peril. And if you're talking about the idea of highways and streets will be well maintained and connected, public transit, water quality and water rights, etc., a huge portion of that comes from this county's ability to pay the bills. And I think we're heading in the wrong direction rather than the right direction. And this visioning statement seems to indicate that we're going to be continuing to be able to do everything that we've been able to do. And I just don't think that's reality. So I would strongly suggest that something in terms of the financial sustainability element, it works in conjunction with the visioning statement to enable you to continue to provide the service levels for all the citizens of Calaveras County.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Kavanaugh. I'm with Citizens for San Andreas. And please correct me if my understanding is incorrect, but back in the latter part of 2007, the various community groups, I think were told by the Board of Supervisors that if we went to our community and tried to get broad public support, that the board and that our information would be considered for inclusion for community-specific language into the community plans. And I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'd like to ask you today is, we've been working on this and we don't want the train to leave town without us. Can the board give us, or Ventura & Associates, give us some sense of direction when they would like our input? Because my understanding also is that if we're not ready, that the train will leave town without us because of the desire for one environmental quality report. Is that right? Yeah, environmental impact. Yeah, okay, that. And so anyway, I just would like to ask the board or ask Ventura & Associates if they could keep the various communities that have been working on their community plans and working on background information and information for the community plans when you guys would like our work so we don't hold up the show.
All right, I see two questions in this. One is maybe dealing with number 3, which is there seems to be not a whole lot of mention of that process in this, so you're adding that. But also, is there anybody who has timetables or an answer to the logistical question raised? All right, and you have the contact list, so nobody will be left at the station as the train departs.
Okay, so the communities will be well informed as to when their work should be submitted to the county, to the board.
Let me try to be more specific. There were some discussions in community meetings about 5 months ago that said September, October was the likely time where the work would need to be completed at the town levels to catch the train. I think the train slowed down in the meanwhile, but I'm curious if there's any. Is that operable at this point, or are we expecting a later date than that? All right, thank you.
I would just only like the assurance of the board that the community groups that have been working on this will be contacted, that our work should be submitted at such and such a time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Marty. I'd like to go through the rest of the speakers, and I'm hoping that each person who wishes to speak will speak before we do seconds.
Good afternoon. Colleen Platt with myvalleysprings.com. Basically, we agree that the Mintier and Associates has done an excellent job with the report, with the issues and opportunities, the vision, and the principles, and we support this report. I just wanted to mention a possible missing issue before we go too much farther. We have commented on this before, but we just were afraid it might be getting lost in the process. On page 3 of the report, under one of the major objectives of the general plan update and the scope of work, quote, refine and where necessary develop GIS information that will be used during the general plan update as well as after the general plan has been adapted, unquote. We really still want to focus on that to obtain accurate maps for developed lands. We don't have these at this point. In the Issues and Opportunities Report introduction, it highlights the importance of the baseline report, both as a snapshot of the Calaveras County's existing conditions and as the environmental setting section for the EIR that will be prepared for the general plan update. So the baseline report and data is very important. It does have some flawed land use data and maps that we have commented on in the past, and we're not sure how and if this is being addressed. We submitted comments in March, and one of the most obvious ones was in the existing property use tables and maps. We looked at, it says a lot of existing communities and town centers are mostly categorized undeveloped or unclassified in the tables and maps, and obviously that's wrong, so we just want to make sure that gets addressed. We looked specifically at the Rancho Calaveras Special Plan area because we're familiar with that area. And as shown in the baseline report, it states that it's only 16.6% developed residential. In fact, in 1999, in the Rancho Calaveras Special Plan, they listed 1,700 lots developed as single-family residential, which works out to 47%. Current research into the assessor database, which we conducted extensive research on that, shows 2,250 single-family residential developed lots on 2,984 acres, which works out to 55% developed areas, not 16.6%. We're just, confused by some of these figures, and we don't know if these inaccuracies are reflected throughout the land use data or maps or not. We would just like to see a focus on that before we get too much farther. On page 8, quote, residential uses take up only about 2% of the total land area in the county. again, we're concerned that these figures, if we're basing our whole general plan on some of these figures, we want to make sure they're accurate. That 2% figure, if it's based on some of these tables and maps, may not be an accurate figure. Page 5, quote, the general plan update will include an analysis of current land use patterns to assess current sprawling patterns of land use. And, quote, the county will select a preferred land use alternative based on this analysis. Again, this shows the importance of determining accurate and current land use maps and data. And we just want to make sure these inaccuracies are corrected in the baseline report or addressed in some other manner, and that the board and the consultants devote adequate resources to this task, specifically updating current land use maps and data. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The questions up there, two things I want to do. I can probably address the vision statement, but I would like to actually add, if I could, a guiding principle to your vision statement, and that would be, we affirm the future of our community lies with our children, from infants to teenagers, and that their education and support are essential to community well-being. We dedicate ourselves to building and sustaining a network of support for youth in our community. As for the issues and opportunities report, I want to speak only to the social infrastructure. And I have to tell you that I have already, when I received this report, I looked at the social infrastructure part of it, and the comments that I have more to do with the role that the Calaveras Child Council has played, and not only in obtaining the support from community-wide support for the issues of youth in our county to be included in the general plan. In addition, I wanted to add the role that not only the Calaveras Child Council has played, but the HRC's Child Care Resources has played in advocating for the role for child care to be in long-range planning. I have submitted my comments already to Mentir Association to be added or to be included in their report. My only question is, I would like to get those comments to the county, to the Board of Supervisors, or to whomever. I'm not sure where they should go relative to the role of the Child Care Council. There are some reports and some acknowledgments that are missing from this draft report that I want to make sure that get into the final report here. But there were other groups and other individuals that played a very key role in developing this, not only this community support, but the development of language. Early in last year and again this year, I have submitted reports, draft language, a matrix of language that throughout the state of jurisdictions that have not only child care language in their general plan, but also have language for youth services. I don't know if I provided that matrix some time ago to Mentir, but it's that I've submitted that information as well, draft language for a background report, draft vision report, and some potential draft language for child care facilities and services. That information I submitted to the Community Development Agency. So I want to make sure that that information and that background information, including needs assessments and an economic impact report, are reflected in the final, this final report. I think what we ought to do with this, when I read through this social infrastructure, I think it's not clear whether we're talking about child care or are we talking about something much broader. What we're talking about in that is a broad universe of youth services, which I agree. I think it's very important that we address. I agree with Marty when she said that we didn't include seniors in there, because if we disregard our kids, we're sort of disregarding our future, and if we ignore our seniors, then what good was our past? So I think that should be in there. But I think if we sat down with Mentura, with the Community Development Agency, we could work out what this would look like. I kind of envision child care facilities, language development to be embedded throughout the general plan, or as a subsection if there was indeed an element that addressed the youth and family services of Calaveras County. I see us in a subsection, but that's something very different. We're talking about facilities and how we address child care as communities grow and mature. What's the impact of new development on child care, on meeting the child care needs of Calaveras families? So I think we need to sort of work that language out. And that's my comments for, I think.
Thank you.
If I can have second round.
All right. Gentleman over here has been trying to be recognized for some time. Please step forward.
When I wrote this, it said good afternoon, but it's now good evening. Board members, thanks for this opportunity. My name is Mark Boyd of Arnold, and the focus of my comments is on item number 10 regarding flooding, fire hazards, and climate change. Record droughts, record wildfires, reduced snowpack. These are just a few of the severe consequences we are now witnessing as a result of global warming. And what I hope to do today is just to provide insight into how Calaveras County can visualize its role on this issue that now affects every one of the 6.5 billion people living on planet Earth. I consider climate change to be the elephant in the room at any general plan update hearing. Specifically, I'm here to speak on the global warming section of the general plan update. Overall, I'm disappointed with this portion of the update because it fails to address the legal requirements of AB 32, Assembly Bill 32, the Global Warming Solution Act. I decided not to speak on the water element because climate change's significant impact on water issues was not addressed, and therefore I want to focus on the underlying problem, which are the shortcomings of the global warming section of the general plan update. I've been studying climate change impacts since 2005, and I have a letter I'd like to submit into today's record summarizing my concerns. Is that okay? Okay. My family also owns property in the city of San Jose, and in 2007 I gave a presentation to members of San Jose Mayor Chuck Reed's staff that laid some of the groundwork for the mayor's green vision. I also met with a group of staff members for the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors that had an updated version of the report. Basically, my report summarizes the regional impacts of climate change and also lists 101 of the best practices to lower a city or county footprint. And I'd be happy to give my presentation to members of this body, not as a paid consultant, but as a concerned citizen. And as I mentioned, I'm disappointed with the global warming section of this update. Specifically, it fails to incorporate AB 32, the Global Warming Solution Act of 2006. General plan updates should be providing a roadmap for reducing greenhouse gas emission levels to 1990 levels by 2020, as required by AB 32. And last August, Attorney General Brown sued San Bernardino County for not incorporating AB 32 into their general plan update. And just last month, the California Building Standards Commission adopted a green building code for new construction, and that goes into effect in 2010. And just 2 days ago, in the Sacramento Bee, a report was published, I have it here, called Sierra Warming, Climate Change Puts Heat on High Country. And the scientists who are quoted in this report are stunned at how rapidly the climate change crisis is unfolding. According to the projections of the California Climate Change Center, the situation is stark and unsettling. So I respectfully ask this board to consider the notion of all the counties of California working together to provide world leadership. California has always been a beacon of leadership on important issues in my lifetime. And one can argue that it's not realistic for us to address greenhouse gas emissions in Calaveras County while China adds a coal-fired plant every 5 days. Again, it is about leadership and for California to show the world that we can protect our environment and at the same time we can grow our economy. And if we could do that, the rest of the world will follow. You know, and on Friday, I'll be in San Jose at a California Air Resources Board public hearing on global warming because this is such a complex and difficult issue. I'll propose that the Air Resources Board draw strength from three of the largest projects of the 20th century, the Marshall Plan, the Apollo Project, and the Manhattan Project. The Marshall Plan would be a model for retrofitting every existing California home and building to green standards. The Apollo Project, as a model, would mentioned recently by former Vice President Al Gore, to provide 100% of our electricity from renewable energy, and the Manhattan Project to ramp up the technological advances needed to meet this challenge. And addressing the serious consequences of climate change is not only our legal obligation, as stated in AB 32, is also our moral obligation to future generations of Calaveras County residents. Thank you.
Sir, if you have copies of the report you gave to San Jose, you can give that to the clerk of the board.
Yeah, I don't have it with me, but I'm happy to. I'd like to show it if I could. If not, I could submit it.
Either way, items from the public on a regular board meeting, or you can give it to us through the clerk of the board, who will distribute it to the members of the supervisors.
That sounds fine. Thank you.
Members of the board.
Thank you. I'm Karen Pekarsik, Director for First 5 Calaveras, and I do want to recognize that many of the elements addressed in the 10-year master plan for Calaveras children and youth that was produced by OCOC, which was funded by First 5 Calaveras Commission several years ago, are recognized in the vision statement, so we really do appreciate that. What I would like to do is offer that during Phase 3, we might share some language with Mintier for the board to review that might more accurately reflect OCOC and the child care facilities issues and children's issues in the vision or in the social infrastructure section. There are a couple of things that probably should be clarified a little better than they are. And they might more closely address the issues and opportunities that face the county on behalf of children and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to submit those to Mintier?
Whichever direction you would prefer, we can submit it directly to Mintier.
Okay, Bob. Actually, if you could give it to Bob Selman, and he'll get that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Other speakers?
You just
Too much to resist, eh?
Well, I'm still Darrell Rusk. I was pretty well concerned with the idyllic language that I have read so far in the draft. I was concerned because it came across like a college classroom dialogue of a socialist dream world. But then the individual presented the argument that the world is going to come to an end because of global warming. The forests will all burn down, and then it'll rain heavily, and it'll all wash into the bay, and then we won't have any problems with the economy in Calaveras County. The thing that I find missing in this presentation in the draft is any recognition of a free market economy. We're in a capitalist world. We're not in a socialist world. We can draw all the ideals. We can draw all the pictures. We can say, oh, we have to present a perfect environment for our children. You know, that's primarily the job of parents. The job of schools is to teach them. The job of the community is to guide them. But the job of the government isn't to control them any more than it is to control a lot of other things. The thing that I find missing is a recognition that there's a free market economy out there, and if you want to raise money that you can use in the budget, you want to have business out there, you want to have an economic viability, and that is not what I see in this draft. It's not reflected at all. But thank God for global warming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe
Joe Kelly, just to pick up where the last gentleman was and where the gentleman on financial sustainability was. I think we need an economic impact report if we're going to look at this draft working vision statement and guiding principles. How's it going to be paid for? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak for the first time around? Because Marty's been waiting for you to do her second presentation. I think she had a minute left on her first or something.
For those of you that don't know, I wear a lot of hats. One of them is that I'm the director for the Volunteer Center of Calaveras County. And thank you for acknowledging not only the extensive efforts, but the incredible value of volunteerism throughout Calaveras County. So thank you for that. Also, I'm grateful for the paragraph that states development will not outpace the ability of county government to provide adequate services and infrastructure or reduce the level of service provided to existing communities, because without that, we continue to play catch up. And that, I think, is where our vulnerable populations, our children, our seniors, those persons with handicaps, disabilities, that's where they fall in between the cracks, because we're not prepared for all the extensive development. We're not there, so we play catch up a lot. And also, I was going to say, there's been a number of comments about how do we pay for it, and it's pie in the sky. Well, we were instructed, as I understand, this came from all the input from the communities. We were instructed to dream. What do you want it to look like? So, and not to worry about how to. The portion of the vision was to dream. And so that's what we did. So thank you for that.
Thanks for reminding us. All right, if there are no other folks who wish to speak from the public, we'll bring it back to the board for board comments. Personally, I wanted to say that we have these 4 questions before us today, but in the document that you presented, there were a number of fairly profound and some mundane policy questions that you included. I don't see us having the time today to move through those, but would like to address them. I don't think just raising them without some board discussion and response makes any sense, especially at this critical moment where we need to provide some guidance on those things. I would certainly like to see us set, in a matter of a short couple of weeks, 3 weeks, an opportunity to have a more thorough board discussion about policy directions and be able to respond to some of the things that have come up here today, in addition to these 4. And I don't know what the board's feeling about that is, but if you could, as we move down the line and comment on these 4 questions, if you have a desire to respond to some of those others, I'd like to know so that we might schedule it on the agenda. So anybody wish to lead off on this?
I'll lead off if you like.
Sure.
I'll lead off. I have a question first, and that is both the vision statement and the guiding principles. As I understand it, they have basically no force and effect as far as policy is concerned. Policy will be established within the elements in the general plan. Is that correct?
Well, supervisors, to the extent that we're conveying overall policy direction, they are policy of the general plan. They just happen to be...
But these aren't policies. This is sort of a wish list, if you would.
Well, think of it as a pyramid with the vision statement and the principles being the top of the pyramid, and then the goals, policies, implementation programs filling out the rest of the pyramid. The vision statement, I would say, in a court of law wouldn't be legally enforceable, but probably the principles would be, because they get down to a more specific level. And but on the other hand, you know, to the extent that you have these very, very high level vision statements and principles, they're overall aspirations that are not going to have the same force as the goals and policies, particularly the policies. So what I'm saying is they're not irrelevant, and they are part of the policy period.
I'm not saying they're irrelevant, but I'm saying they're not. If a developer came in and wanted to do a development, you wouldn't go to the vision statement and the guiding principles upon which to condition that development. Is that correct? That is correct. Thank you. Okay, I understand what you're saying. You know, there's the Constitution, and maybe there's the Declaration of Independence, but it's the Constitution that's the law. You don't go to the Declaration of Independence to establish the law, though it is a fine guiding principle, in my opinion. So let me just say that when I read vision statements, I always sort of smile when I read a vision statement by government. And, you know, we have one here in front of us. The county has a vision statement. CCWD has a vision statement. And usually, is what I look at here, what government tends to do with their vision statement and their guiding principles is say, if you'll just give me all control of all aspects of your life, I will give you nirvana. And I am going to give you all these wonderful things. And it doesn't work that way. Government is not a vehicle to deliver nirvana, and quite frankly, utopia maybe is a better term. Utopia isn't something we achieve, and the like. So, you know, I read just from today's agenda, Calaveras County Government's mission statement. The mission of Calaveras County Government is to provide service, infrastructure, leadership, and vision necessary to advance a safe community, maintain a high quality of life, while preserving local history and culture, and to protect personal liberties for all its citizens. Well, if we're doing that, we don't need a new general plan, because that's what the general plan basically is addressing. And you can fill up the boardroom with lots of controversy that's taken on that vision statement every time we have a controversial subject in front of the Board of Supervisors, or likewise CCWD. As I look at the vision statement, I agree, and I forget who it was that made the comment. I think it was the economic individual, and it says, the historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources. And I look at mostly the value of its productive resources as being private resources, not necessarily government resources. And the distinction of its physical beauty will continue, it says, to create a high quality of life. I think what you need to say is to contribute towards a high quality or a higher quality of life for residents and visitors to the county. I don't know that we need a remarkable and a memorable experience. I don't know quite what that adds to other than a bunch of sort of puff, as they say in real estate. Your first guiding principle, I do not have a particular comment on. When it comes to open space, wildlife, scenic vistas, etc., will be protected. I don't know what you mean by will be protected. It seems to me that needs to be clarified, and it should be clarified something along the lines will be protected by voluntary incentive programs that meet the needs of the property owner. If you read through this all of these guiding principles, we don't have one recognition that private property rights even exist in the county of Calaveras, and that if you're going to implement any of this, you're going to have to bring private property owners into wanting to achieve these principles. So at some point, you're going to have to put in terms like voluntary and incentives, and some of the incentives, we have the Williamson Act, we have different programs that do provide incentives. Maybe we need additional incentives. I don't know, but I'm uncomfortable when you just say the government will just protect all of this, and basically most of it's probably in the private sector. You say communities will have clear boundaries and be separated from one another by working landscapes, green belts, or parks. That's number 3. Well, already Angels has annexed and absorbed Altaville. Murphy's and Douglas Flat have pretty much grown together and exist at this point as one community. If you look at actually the way most people look at community or looking at communities, there's probably only 4 or 5 in the whole county. You go up to Arnold and it's mostly made up of subdivisions. Murphy's and Douglas Flat, I think, is a community. Angels Camp is a community. You can go down to Copper, and it's made up mostly of different large subdivisions. You can go to Valley Springs, and Old Valley Springs is almost a dead town. And then you basically have a whole range of subdivisions, whether it be Rancho Calaveras or La Contenta or Wallace Lake Estates or, et cetera, et cetera. Moke Hill, I think, McCullamy Hill meets the definition probably of a sort of a conventional community. And, so off the top of my head, I think maybe we have 3 of them in the whole county. So at some point we better address, and I think we do in some of the, once we get into the general plan, I guess you could say Castle and Cook is trying to sort of create a community in Copper, but it's very limited. It's not a community in the sense of Angels Camp or Murphy's or even McCullamy Hill. You go down to number 4. Where am I here? Communities will have distinct centers where shopping, medical services, childcare, school jobs, and infrastructure. And I guess San Andres, I would say, is sort of a community, meets that, are available. They will provide a range of housing types and affordability so people of all income levels can live in the same community. I mean, I don't know how you expect government to just sort of achieve all that. We have one hospital. That's in San Andres. We have some outreach clinics in some of the communities. Obviously, you're not going to have all income levels in every community. You're going to have some working communities, and you're going to have some high-income communities, and that's just, that's how it's going to be. So I think you put down there something that I don't think is achievable. I don't know how you're going to just regulate your way into that. You say businesses will thrive in a strong local economy based on sustainable natural resources and innovative industries. New opportunities for economic development will capitalize on advanced technology and catalyze growth and innovation. Well, I mean, that's fine, but we don't know where our innovation and growth is coming from. I mean, Murphy's has probably reinvented itself 2 or 3 different times in the time I've been on its board, and now basically it's fine dining, arts, wine, catering, and the like. It wasn't that at all when I was first elected in 1984, and it went through some other innovations before it is where it is today. So I'm not so sure we know exactly, where we're going. I'm all for your telecommunications and having sort of high-income people working at home. I think is something that we already are attracting significant numbers along that, and I think that's something we should try to grow. I don't know what, you didn't number these, so visitors from around the state, I don't have a problem with that. The next one is development will not outpace the ability of county government to provide adequate services and infrastructure or reduce the level of service provided to existing communities. I don't know quite how you define some of these things. I mean, a lot of people up here, and this one gentleman stood up and talked all about education and about, my God, we don't want growth to outpace education. But you want to hear the people in education squawk? Just have declining enrollment. Then you'll hear them squawk, because they're a lot more fearful of declining enrollment than they are of a growing enrollment. And who says what the level of adequate service is, at least as provided by the government? The private sector provides lots of things, but one individual says, well, we want child care in the general plan. Well, why don't we have laundromats and I can give you all kinds of things we're short of in the county, and gas stations and grocery stores. coffee shops and everything else. I mean, at some point, a general plan needs to be a lot more focused than that. And I think the private sector or those social services that provide child care are fine. I don't think we need child care in the general plan. We always have to bring up public transit for some reason, though public transit in a county like ours at our level of population makes no sense at all, other than maybe 2 or 3 routes that have the ridership to really sustain it. We had a gentleman come before the board today complaining about roads in Murphy's, but you know, a lot of that money goes into transit. I mean, you have a certain amount of money and you decide how to allocate it and you prioritize it. And if you keep wanting to prioritize public transit, then that's coming right out of the public circulation and transportation infrastructure for the county. And the last comment I'll give is on climate change. I think there is a lot of scientific debate taking place on on climate change. We have to meet AB 32 because that's what the state legislature passed law because they wanted to close out scientific debate on climate change. And of course, climate change is a huge topic. The Earth is always going through climate change. The question is, what is man-made and what is not? But I would like to see some more recognition of property rights and the private sector and the principles, and not have it be all just about government. Thank you.
Thank you. Just move down the line here, Russ.
Thank you all for coming back. I'm pretty much of a different frame of mind than Supervisor Tryon about this issue. I'm very pleased to see that when we collectively promised you that we would have a general plan that was reflective of our individual characters of the communities, that's what we would deliver, and I think we're headed significantly in that direction. So, would this document be available to me electronically? Could somebody send that to me? Because I'd like to do a little wordsmithing on it. I don't want to belabor the issues right now, but it's getting late. But I'm committed to do the same thing for the county that I tried to do in Copperopolis, to draft a plan that is reflective of the individual characteristics and the wants and desires of the people that live there. And I think I could count more than 4 communities. I spent a delightful afternoon and evening in a community of sheep ranch the other day that I think that's probably one of our strongest assets, is having little communities like that. So I hope that it will always be so. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Claudino.
Well, I don't take a critical view of this at all. Actually, I think you've done a very good job. Although I don't disagree with many of the things Supervisor Tryon has said. It's simply that, as Marty Crane said, they were asked to dream. It's a vision statement, so it's not enforceable as policy. And these are goals, and be they general goals or desires. My understanding is that's what a vision statement and the guiding principle is supposed to do. It's like a destination, not necessarily an enforceable result. And so, with the exception of a few things, it was mentioned more than once here, this Assembly Bill 32 with regard to climate. Perhaps that needs to be in here. I don't know, but it's similar to what was read earlier, the vision statement of Calaveras County, that we provide all those wonderful things for people. And we don't do that on a case-by-case, person-by-person, issue-by-issue. That's just something that we would prefer as a goal. And so with that in mind, I think this is an excellent draft working vision statement, and perhaps it needs some adjustment. Maybe some things need to be included, perhaps not, but I don't think that we need to get too specific here. This is not policy. This is not the general plan itself. It's just an idea of what we would like to have as a philosophy when we craft that general plan, and that's how I view it. So there may be a few things that need to be added or adjusted under question number 3, issues and/or opportunities that are missing or have not been characterized correctly. I think the staff and the consultant Mentier Associates can work on that based on the input that we've had here today. Like I say, an example is this Assembly Bill 32. Perhaps it needs review from the County Council as well, just to make sure that any other issues of that nature are not omitted or properly addressed.
Thank you. Supervisor Callaway.
I'm a very practical kind of person, and I was looking at this thinking, yeah, right, well-maintained roads, water quality, we're not in the water business, we don't do that, that should be out. And then, I started listening to people talk, and outside of maybe adding in financial sustainability under the the vision statement, that's just what this is. And if we don't think 25, 30 years out, and here's our vision and the guiding principles, then, let's just get to the meat and potatoes. I mean, Tom's right, that's where projects will be evaluated. But this is a much broader base issue, is the vision statement and the guiding principles. So I've kind of come full circle in listening to the community, and I'm fine with this. Outside of wordsmithing, I'm fine. I would like to add the comment that Jim Conklin talked about.
Thank you. I'll take a turn as well at this. I attended a number of these meetings and was kind of refreshed by it, actually, and the kind of hope and spirit of the people in these communities actually stands in somewhat stark contrast with sometimes cynical views that one might gain from this vantage point from time to time. I actually thought that it was a good idea to look at what our highest ideals might be. And I also found there to be considerable consensus, community after community, places very different from my communities in District 2, although I'm quite pleased that people have mentioned McCollum Hill and Sheep Ranch as places that have preserved some sense of community and rural place. What I'd like to suggest to you is that those two towns were the first two towns in District 2 to actually develop community plans. And they implemented them long enough ago so that subsequent inattention did not do overly much damage. Government does play a role. It can play a good role, it can play a bad role, or it can play no role. And all of those will have some impact on people's lives. That's not to say that the private sector doesn't do a whole lot in the formation of markets in a capitalist economy, actually dictate a lot of what happens, both good, bad, and ugly. The role of government, however, in my view, is to listen carefully to people, to ask them what their hopes, ideals, and dreams might be, and do what we might do to help facilitate their accomplishment. And that will be by volunteers, and it will be by private sector, and it will be by government attention to the wishes of its people. We pride ourselves as Americans. Our whole Constitution talks about the rights of individuals, but our whole history also is communities actually working together to overcome differences, to overcome, we call ourselves a melting pot. In my view, this is an effort to produce a community, at least a community vision, and I think this is a job well done on that. Actually, it does reflect what I see in the communities I represent, but also when I traveled to others and listened to what they had to say. It was remarkably, even though I think they screwed up some towns, those same people in those towns are talking almost the same language and have some of the same dreams. We often define our dreams differently, and that's, to some extent, I guess, what our next phase will be. We're going to be talking about different options. We're going to be talking about different paths to different places. And I don't think knocking the dream down a few notches makes any sense. What I think the real work is, however, is in the implementation measures and in the land use and the larger elements of this that we're going to have to grapple with. And the more specific we get, the more clear it will be that while we dream or express our dreams the same, that how we interpret the quality of rural life or economic success is quite different in different places. My hope is that we'll find a way to recognize the differences in these towns through the efforts that people are making on their community plans, while we give a broad brushstroke and a good framework for people to deal with it. I think to answer the questions, I think you did a great job of drafting an overall vision. I think the draft working vision statement and guiding principles are good. I agree with Marita Callaway that financial or economic sustainability is a critical piece of making those things happen, and I would hope some careful attention would be paid to economic development and financial sustainability as an expression in the vision. I think people categorize the things I heard in these community meetings very well, and actually I was surprised. I was expecting more of a boilerplate version, and this actually looks pretty specific to the things I saw raised. There are a few things maybe left out, and I think my concerns were mentioned by others, previous speakers, but I would welcome the opportunity for a little bit of review before we finalize. And finally, the issues are going to be, and opportunity is going to be most important. You raised at least 20 questions of policy and that have great implications in the answer to number 4. And I would ask whether the board has an interest in delving deeper into that so we can gain some or provide some direction in policy framework step, which I see as you develop options. It would be pretty good for us to send a pretty clear message from this board, whatever it might be. So I would at this time ask whether the board has an interest in trying to frame a discussion, whether staff might assist in framing a discussion to get some of the important policy questions answered before we move to the next phase of the general plan process. Certainly some of the issues that were raised today, economic issues, public-private issues are important in that, but so too are all 20 or so of the questions that you raised. Is there a board view of that?
Yes. You're asking us for direction on those so you can proceed, are you not?
I'm sorry. We've asked specifically on the 4 questions, and any input you want to give us on the 4 questions. Right. The questions that we've raised at the end of each of the sections is really sort of a setup for the next phase when we get into options. So the questions that, how are we doing? Do we have the right handle on the kind of issues and questions that are going to be of concern to you?
But you're saying you need those questions, some direction from the board on those questions to go to the next phase. Is that correct?
Well, again, first we need to know that we're asking the right questions. How far you want to go in terms of answering them in the absence of our providing you options is your call as a board.
Well, let me try to rephrase what I just said. I think the questions are significant enough to warrant board careful review so that we can frame the next phase of your work. And to my way of thinking, that's an important part of our role, is to be clear about what our wishes are in framing options.
Yes, I support having it come back and having a discussion of those 4 issues and the questions you asked and their conclusion.
Supervisor Thomas?
Are you suggesting in a study session?
On number 4.
Well, it's number 4, but also reading the document, there were a number of issues that we haven't even broached today that I thought might warrant some discussion. I would ask staff to frame this up for us so that we can be accurate in terms of responding to your needs. Other views?
Let's do it. It's fine.
Rita?
I'm confused, so.
I just want to talk about it.
All right, I think there's 4 that wish that and 1 sort of with the jury still out.
I want to go out to dinner and then come back.
Would staff wish to summarize or answer any questions that came up, or are we complete with the day's proceedings? And do that at the next. All right. In that case, I want to thank everybody for their attendance here today, sticking with it to the conclusion. Look forward to seeing you at our next board review of this topic, and good evening.